Morning, presided over by the Deputy Speaker of the Senate. Enjoy your viewing.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi na baraka sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita kwa nyadhifa za uongozi katika jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amina. Clerk, do you have quorum? Sergeant at Arms, ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
Of the Senate has commenced this morning, and we are off with a quorum bell. The kicking off of the quorum bell with a directive of 10 minutes as given by the Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Kathure Murungi, is to allow for senators who are yet to make their way into the chamber this morning to do exactly that, to allow the House to raise the quorum required to commence business this morning, as we need at least 15 senators according to the House standing orders. So senators, as you can see on your screens, are making their way into the chamber this morning to give the House that requisite number to commence business. A procedural motion this morning will be moved on the limitation of debate on motions. This procedural motion will by the lead of the majority party, that pursuant to standing orders number 111, subsection 1 of the Senate, the House resolves that a debate on a motion not sponsored by the lead of the majority party or the minority party or a committee shall be limited to a maximum of 3 hours, with not more than 20 minutes for the mover, 20 minutes for the majority leader, 20 minutes for the minority party responder, and 15 minutes for each senator speaking. And further, that 15 minutes before the time expires, the mover shall be called upon to reply. So this is basically a motion setting the speed for the House business that is officially commencing today, after the House resumed its normal sitting yesterday, with the business being prioritized, being the formation of the House Business Committee, which the senators passed yesterday. And so that gave the green light to the House to commence the consideration of a number of business. The other procedural motion is a limitation of debate on a motion on President's address to Parliament, where the Senate leader of the majority party is proposing that, pursuant to standing orders of the House, standing orders number 27, subsection 6, the Senate resolves that the debate on a motion on President's address to Parliament shall be limited to a maximum of 3 sitting days and not more than 15 minutes for each senator speaking, excluding the mover in moving and replying. The House will this morning consider a number of bills. Among them is the Early Childhood Education Bill, this being an amendment to the existing Early Childhood Education Bill, Senate Bills number 54 of the year 2023. This bill is being sponsored at the Senate by Senator Eddie Okech, and it is currently at the Committee of the Whole stage, this being the third reading of the bill, where senators usually vote for the amendments proposed in the bill that is before the Committee of the Whole. The Senate this morning will equally be considering the report of the Mediation Committee on the Conflict of Interest Bill. This is National Assembly Bills number 12 of the year 2023 by the Vice Chairperson, a Mediation Committee, the report of the Standing Committee on Matters Education on a petition to the Senate regarding the Discrimination by Teacher Service Commission, TSC, on the payment of hardship and enhanced house allowances to some teachers in Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties. This is a motion by the Chairperson Standing Committee on Matters Education, who until now happens to be the Senator for Murang'a County. But remember, given priority this morning is a motion that is seeking to disband the existing committees, where we'll be expecting rearrangements of chairpersons and members of various committees moving forward, this being the fourth session of the Senate. And remember, the term of each committee is about 3 years after a general election, and the time is ripe for the reconstitution of the committees at Parliament. The report of the Standing Committee on Matters Agriculture and Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding the catastrophic maize diseases that farmers in Bomet County have endured for the last 12 years is a report for consideration by the Senate this morning. This report is being spearheaded by the Chairperson, a Standing Committee on Matters Agriculture and Livestock, as well as Fisheries, on behalf of his committee members. The current Chairperson for the Committee for Agriculture is the Senator for Kirinyaga County, Senator James Murango. Equally, Senator Murango, on behalf of his Committee on Matters Agriculture, will also be seeking to have the Senate consider the report of the Standing Committee on the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on a petition to the Senate regarding the graft investigation by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, on the West Kano irrigation scheme. The Committee on Matters Trade, currently chaired by the Senator for Kajiado County, Senator Seki Olekanar, has a motion this morning on matters, a petition to the Senate on alleged fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC and East African Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries and UDV Kenya Limited. This petition is expected to be considered by the Senate in a report after the committee investigated the cases of fraudulent dealings.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
I will be making that communication shortly after the messages.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable Senators, you bear with me. I have several messages to go through, and you must be a bit patient with them. Honorable Senators, this is a message from the National Assembly of the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 45 of 2024. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 45 of 2024. The message dated 6 December 2024 was received in the office of the Clerk of the Senate on the same date when the Senate and proceeded on recess. It was subsequently circulated to all senators via letter dated 9th December 2024. Pursuant to Standing Order 46.5, I now report the message. And I quote, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills of 45, number 45 of 2024 was published by the Kenya Gazette Supplement number 190 on 1st November 2024 to amend the Public Finance Management Act, Cap 412A, to provide clarity on the effective date for the statutory debt deductions and to prescribe a framework for the implementation of actuarial accounting in government and risk management by government. And whereas the National Assembly considered the said bill and passed it with amendments on Thursday, 20th November 2024 in the form attached here too. Now therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 41 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 163, which provides that a bill that originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate by way of first reading, in accordance with Standing Order 144, the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 45 for 2024, will be laid a first time as listed in the order paper for this morning sitting. I thank you. Another one is still a message from the National Assembly, which is passed by the National Assembly of the Public Finance Management Amendment number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 44 of 2024. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the Public Finance Management Amendment number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 44 of 2024. The message dated 5th December 2024 was received in the office of the Clerk of the Senate on the same date when the Senate and proceeded on recess. It was subsequently circulated to all senators via letter dated 6th December 2024. Pursuant to Standing Order 46.5, I now report the message. And I quote, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Public Finance Management Amendment number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 44 of 2024 was published by the Kenya Gazette Supplement number 189 of 1st December 2024 to amend the Public Finance Management Act to provide for financial management in the transfer of functions between the two levels of government pursuant to Article 187 of the Constitution. And whereas the National Assembly considered the said bill and passed it with amendments on Tuesday, 28 November 2024 in the form attached here too. Now therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 41 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 163, which provides that a bill that originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate by your first reading in accordance with Standing Order 144, the Public Finance Management Amendment Number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 44 of 2024 will be read a first time as listed in the order paper for this morning sitting. This is another message, again from the National Assembly, which is passed by the National Assembly of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 48 of 2024. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 48 of 2024. The message written 6th December 2024 was received in the office of the Clerk of the Senate on the same date when the Senate then proceeded to recess. It was subsequently circulated to all senators via letter dated 9th December 2024. Pursuant to Standing Order 46.5, I now report the message. Senator Enoch Kwambua, find the nearest seat. But if you sit where it's Democrat and Deputy Minority Leader, it will be better for you. So, pursuant to Standing Order 46.5, I report the message. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 48 of 2024, was published by the Kenya Gazette Supplement Number 194 of 1st November 2024 as a bill seeking to amend the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act, Cap 412C, to inter alia prescribe the threshold of procurement that shall be exclusively set aside for local firms, and also require all procuring entities to set out specific goods, works, and services to be undertaken by a local firm in joint venture procurement. And whereas on Thursday, 20th November 2024, the National Assembly considered and passed the said bill with amendments and in the form attached hereto. Now, therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. So, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 163, which provides that a bill that originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with the Senate by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate by your first reading, in accordance with Standing Order 144, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 48 of 2024, will be read the first time as listed in the order paper for this morning sitting. This is the last one, another message from the National Assembly, passed by the National Assembly Bill of the Cooperatives Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 7 of 2024. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 46.3, I received the following message from the Speaker of the National Assembly regarding the passage by the National Assembly of the Cooperatives Bill, National Assembly Bills Number 7 of 2024. The message dated 16th January 2025 was received in the office of the Clerk of the Senate on the same date when the Senate was on recess. It was subsequently circulated to all senators via letter dated 17th January 2025. Pursuant to Standing Order 46.5, I now report the message. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 41.1 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby convey the following message from the National Assembly. Whereas the Cooperatives Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2024 was published by Kenya Gazette Supplement number 32 of 9th February 2024 to provide for the establishment of the Office of the Commissioner for Cooperative Development at the national level of government and the Office of the County Director for Cooperatives in each county government, and to provide for the promotion, registration, and regulation of cooperatives, to provide for intergovernmental cooperative relations and for connected purposes. And whereas the National Assembly considered the said bill and passed it on that December 2024 with amendments in the form attached hereto. Now therefore, in accordance with the provisions of Article 110(4) of the Constitution and Standing Orders 41 and 142 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, I hereby refer the bill to the Senate for consideration. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 163, which provides that a bill that originates in the National Assembly be proceeded with by the Senate in the same manner as a bill introduced in the Senate for your first reading in accordance with Standing Order 144, the Cooperatives Bill, National Assembly Bills number 7 of 2024 will be read a first time as listed in the order paper for this morning sitting. I thank you. Next order.
Order number 3, petitions. Order number 4, petitions.
Next
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader, you have a number of papers to read.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, the 12th February 2025. Session of paper number 1 of 2025 on the foreign policy of the Republic of Kenya. 2, the Civil Aviation Aircraft Accident and Incident Investigation Regulations Notice number 5 of 2024. Commission on Revenue Allocation, recommendations on the county government's recurrent expenditure budget ceilings for financial year 2025-2026. The Commission on Revenue Allocation recommendations on the fourth basis for revenue sharing among the county governments for financial year 2025-2026 to 2029-2030. The Auditor General report on the county government's county executives for financial year 2023 to 2024, Volume 1. The Auditor General's report on the county government's county assemblies for 2023-2024, Volume 2. The report of the Office of the Control of Budget on the National Government Budget Implementation Review for the first quarter for financial year 2024-2025. The Judicial Service Commission Annual Report for financial year 2023-2024. The Kenya Law Reforms Commission Annual Report for the financial year 2023-2024. The National Cohesion and Integration Commission Annual Report and Financial Statements for financial year 2022-2023. The Council of Governors Annual Statutory Report for 2023-2024. The Public Service Commission Annual Report for financial year 2023-2024. The Public Service Commission Report on Citizen Satisfaction and Impact Evaluation on Service Delivery in Public Institutions. The Public Service Commission 13th Report on the status of the compliance of the public service with values and principles in Articles 10 and 232 of the Constitution. The 4th Medium-Term Plan 4, 2023-2027 booklet by the National Treasury and Economic Planning, State Department for Economic Planning. The National Reporting Indicator Handbook for the 4th Medium-Term Plan 2023-2027 by the National Treasury and Economic Planning, State Department for Economic Planning. The National Reporting Indicator Handbook for 4th Medium Term Plan 4, 2023-2024, by the National Treasury and Economic Planning, State Department for Economic Planning, and the 4th Medium Term Plan 2023-2027 booklet, popular version, by the National Treasury and Economic Planning, State Department for Economic Planning. I beg to lay. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Senators. Maybe you can realize we have a supplementary on the paper. Maybe if you have not checked, you shouldn't be aware. Before we go to the next order, I want to make this communication. This communication is on the implementation of the resolution of the Senate on the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges on the conduct of Senator Gloria Roba, MP. Honorable Senators, by the way of background, you will recall that on 2nd August 2023, the Committee of Powers and Privileges commenced an inquiry on its own motion into the conduct of Senator Gloria Oroba, MP. The committee sought to make a determination on whether the conduct of the senator in relation to the publication of allegations by the senator on the Senate Business WhatsApp group constituted a breach of privilege, and if the conduct was found to be a breach of privilege, appropriate recommendations be made in accordance with the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act and the Senate Standing Orders. Honorable Senators, as the Committee of Powers and Privileges was settling down to investigate the matter, Senator Onyonka, you can find your way to the nearest seat. Have your seat, Senator? The nearest one for this matter. This is a long communication, but maybe you shouldn't again be patient with it. So, Honorable Senators, as the Committee of Powers and Privileges was settling down to investigate the matter, Senator Gloria Orobo on 4th August 2023 found a petition in the High Court in Nairobi, being Nairobi High Court petition number E283 of 2023, against the Attorney General, the Clerk of the Senate, the Speaker of the Senate Committee of Powers and Privileges, and the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. In the petition, the Senator sought conservatory orders barring the Senate Committee of Powers and Privileges from proceeding with the inquiry into her conduct. The court, while certifying the matter as urgent, declined to grant the conservatory orders sought and instead ordered that the application be served and be mentioned on 21st September 2023 to confirm compliance and for further directions. The committee therefore proceeded with the inquiry as per the law. It concluded its inquiry and tabled a report before the Senate thereon on 9th August 2023, upon which a motion for the consideration of the report of the committee was debated in the following terms: that the Senate adopts the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges on the inquiry on its own motion into conduct of Senator Gloria Oroba, MP, and to establish if the conduct constituted breach of parliamentary privilege laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 9th August 2023. Honorable Senators, you recall that the debate on the motion commenced on 10th August 2023, and on 20th September 2023, the Senate, by resolution, adopted the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges. The recommendations adopted by the Senate on the matter were that, 1, pursuant to Section 17(3)(g) of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017, the Senator be suspended from the House for the remainder of the second session of the 13th Parliament. And 2, pursuant to Section 17(3)(d) of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017, restriction of access to the precincts of Parliament, as defined in Section 3 of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017, and the Standing Order 2 of the Senate Standing Orders, and withholding the use or enjoyment of any specified facility provided to members by Parliament to be applied to the Senator for the remainder of the second session of the 13th Parliament. And 3, on resumption of Senate sitting for the 3rd session, the Senator, while at the bar, apologizes to the Senate, honorable senators, the clerk of the Senate, and the Secretariat of Parliament before being admitted to the Senate, pursuant to Section 17(3)(c) of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act 2017. This resolution of the Senate was communicated to the Senator via the letter reference number SEN/RESOLS/24/2023-01, dated 28th September 2023, and was under implementation by the Senate. Honorable Senators, on 28th of September 2023, Senator Ngururo Roba again filed a judicial review application number E008 of 2023 in Machakos High Court against the clerk of the Senate, the Speaker of the Senate Committee of Powers and Privileges, and the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. The Senator sought leave to apply for judicial review orders to quash the recommendations of the Committee of Powers and Privileges and the resolution of the Senate made on 28 September 2023. The Senator further sought orders to restrain the respondents referred to herein above from implementing the recommendations of the report of the Committee of Powers by the Senate on 28 September. Also sought orders to compel the respondents to give effect to Articles 10, 27, 31, 33, 36, 47 of the Constitution of Kenya. On 20 September 2023, the matter was heard ex parte before the High Court at Machakos, and orders were issued whose effect was to suspend implementation of the resolution of the Senate of 20 September 2023 as contained in the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges, pending a hearing and determination of the substantive judicial review application. By a communication from the Chair to the Senate dated 5th October 2023, in the presence of Senator Ngururo Roba, MP, following the resolution of the Senate to adopt the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges on the conduct of the Senator, and having considered this matter after taking into account previous rulings of Speakers of Parliament and the court decisions, it was the Speaker's ruling that whereas the Senate was dissatisfied with the conservatory order obtained by Senator Ngururo Roba, the Senate shall comply with the said order while reserving its right to rigorously defend its position in court, and that the Senate did not breach the Constitution or any other law in arriving at its decision to suspend the Honorable Senator. Honorable Senators, Machakos High Court, JR, which means Judicial Review Application number E283 of 2023, Ngururo Roba versus AG, Clerk of the Senate, and 3 others, was subsequently transferred to the High Court at Milimani and was heard before Honorable Justice L.N. Mugambi, and judgment was delivered electronically on 15 January 2025. It was the finding of the court that the petitioner, ex parte applicant, Senator Ngururo Roba, MP, was provided with the opportunity to appear and state a case, presumably even raising all the manner of preliminary issues before the 4th respondent. But she instead opted not to participate and walked out on the 4th respondent, having voluntarily refused to participate. I find that there was no infringement of right to fair administrative action or the right to fair hearing in the circumstances of this case. I thus dismiss this petition, judicial review application with the courts to the respondents. The import of the judgment is that the court order staying the resolution of the Senate on the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges, as well as any other consequential orders in the matters filed by the Honorable Senator, have lapsed. The suspension of Senator Nguru Yoroba may now therefore commence. Honorable Senators, you recall that a resolution of the Senate, let me have mercy to these honorable senators. Just sit there where you are. Senator of Busia County, I did not say you extend greetings, but to find your seat. Honorable Senators, you recall that by resolution of the Senate, dated 28 September 2023, Senator Roba was suspended from the House for the remainder of the second session of the 13th Parliament, which session ended on 7th December 2023, as per standing order that 1-1 of the Senate standing orders, which period amounted to 79 calendar days. However, Senator Roba MP obtained leave from the court, staying the resolution of this House. By the wording of the court order, the leave granted operated a stay of the suspension of Senator Roba MP and unbarring from the Senate proceedings for the remainder of the second session of the 13th Parliament from the date of adoption of the report by the Senate in being 28 September 2023. The consequence of the stay of suspension by the High Court is that Senator Nguru Roba MP did not serve any of her suspension as resolved by the Senate. Honorable Senators, in accordance with Section 15(7), as read together with the paragraph 4 of the third schedule of the Parliamentary Powers and Privileges Act, the responsibility for enforcing the resolution of the Senate on the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges is vested in the Speaker. Having considered this matter and taking note of the judgment delivered by the court on 15th August 2025 and the orders therein, Senator Nguru Roba shall now forthwith commence a suspension following the resolution of the Senate of 20th September 2023 to adopt the report of the Committee of Powers and Privileges on her conduct. The 79 calendar days that were to be applied in the year 2023 will therefore run from today, Wednesday, 12th February 2025, to Thursday, 1st May 2025. The office of the Clerk of the Senate is directed to enforce the resolution of the Senate made on the 20th of September 2023 in the terms referred to above. I thank you. The Senator is looking at me with so, yeah, because you are looking at me and I have no recourse to what I have communicated, but on humanitarian grounds, let me give you a minute or two to say something as you commence your suspension.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this time to possibly offer my apologies to the members of this House and to the members of the staff who I might have offended as I pursued whatever I was pursuing in terms of oversight or legislation. Mr. Speaker, if there is anyone, and I know that there are people who have actually come up to me and told me that I offended them, take this as my sincere apology. And truly, from the bottom of my heart, and as you can see, I have learned how to present and represent people better. And it is a learning curve, Mr. Speaker. However, I do understand that also I own up my actions and I own up my space. And so therefore, as I proceed for my suspension, I do hope that those I have offended will find it in their hearts to forgive me, and that it was not my intention to put out and maybe put out the Senate to seem that I'm trying to ridicule this upper house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. As you have written yourself, for sure, it's like you are maturing. So thank you, all the best. Next order. Next order, clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Majority Leader, there's a notice of motion you are supposed to give. Senator Wakol, you cannot ventilate on a communication from the chair.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes,
allow me to
Majority
drop
Leader.
this notice. We consulted further this morning on what needs to happen, and we'll be bringing a more substantive motion in the afternoon.
Okay.
So allow me to drop this.
Fine, well guided. Next order.
Yeah.
The other notices of motion by from number 1 to number 6, Chairperson Mediation Committee on the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023. The other one is on the Chairperson Standing Committee on Education, Standing Committee on Agriculture, two notices, and also Committee on Trade, Industrialization, and Tourism. And there are two notices. So whether the chairs or members of those committees should be well advised.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to give notice of the following motion on the report of the Mediation Committee on the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, that the Senate adopts the report of the Mediation Committee on the Conflict of Interest Bill, National Assembly Bills number 12 of 2023, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th of December, 2024, and further that pursuant to Articles 113 sub-article 2 of the Constitution and Standing Order 167.3 of the Senate approves the mediated version of the bill. I move. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Education. Chairperson, Standing Committee on Education. Senator Sigei approves the chair.
Member of Education.
Senator Sigei.
Just do it. You can read.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a member of Education Committee, and I rise to give notice for this motion. The report of the Standing Committee of Education on a petition to the Senate regarding the discrimination by on hardship and enhanced house allowance to some teachers in Kilifi and Taita Taveta, the chairperson standing committee on education, that on behalf of the chairperson standing committee, that the Senate adopts the report on the standing committee of education on petition to the Senate regarding the discrimination of, by Teachers Service Commission, TSC, on payments on hardship and enhanced house allowances to some teachers in Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 8th October, laid on the table of the Senate today, February 2025. October, okay. Laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 8th October 2024. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair Standing Committee, Senator Mundigi. Senator Mundigi. Honorable Senators, give way for Senator Mundigi to.
I rise to give notice of the following motion. Mr. Mundigi, Senator, M County. Report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding the catastrophic means diseases that farmers in Bomet County have endured for the last 12 years. Second, I rise to give notice of the following motion. Report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition on the Senate regarding graft investigation by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, on the West Canal Irrigation Scheme. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairperson, Trade Committee, or any member of that committee? Senator Mondet, proceed to give notice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I beg to give notice for the following motion on behalf of the Senate Committee on Trade, that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee of Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate regarding alleged fraudulent dealings at the Diageo PLC, East Africa Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries and UDV Kenya Limited, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. I beg to lay. Second notice, I give notice that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on the Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate on the need for the introduction of a hospitality professionals bill, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. I beg to lay.
Thank you, Senator Montet. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
We do not have any questions or statements, and therefore we shall proceed to the next order.
Order number 8, the Public Finance Management Amendment number 3 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 44 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to amend the Public Finance Management Act to provide for financial management in the transfer of functions between the two levels of government pursuant to Article 187 of the Constitution and for connected purposes. Order number 9, the Public Finance Management Amendment number 4 Bill, National Assembly Bills number 45 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Public Finance Management Act and for connected purposes. Order number 10, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 48 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Public Procurement Act, to amend the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Cooperatives Bill, National Assembly Bills number 7 of 2024, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to establish the office of the Commissioner for Cooperative Development at the national level of government and the office of the County Director for Cooperatives in each county government to provide for promotion, registration, and regulation of cooperatives, to provide for intergovernmental cooperative relations and for connected purposes.
The majority leader has since deferred the motion under order number 12, so we will move to the next procedural motion. Call out the next order to allow the majority leader to move.
Order number 13, procedural motion, limitation of debate on motions.
Leader of majority. Give him the microphone.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the following motion, which is a limitation of debate on motions. This is a procedural motion that, pursuant to Standing Order number 111.1, the Senate resolves that the debate on a motion not sponsored by majority or minority party or a committee shall be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover, 20 minutes for the majority party official responder, 20 minutes for the minority party official responder, and 15 minutes for each other senator speaking, and further 15 minutes before the time expires. The mover shall then be called upon to reply. Mr. Speaker, this is a straightforward matter. It's just to give life to Standing Order number 111.1 on the maximum time that the Senate can take while debating a motion that has been sponsored by either the majority or the minority party. I'm trying to see if there's anybody concentrating on the minority side to second. I'm not sure whether they are, but just to try, Mr. Speaker, if Senator Ledama can multitask, I know men can hardly ever do that, Mr. Speaker, but let me give Senator Ledama to second. I second. I move. I beg to move, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is indeed important to limit debate, and the motion being proposed by the majority leader, or is it the minority leader today, is a very important motion for us to consider. So I beg to second.
Now, Honorable Senators, I propose the question that, pursuant to Standing Order 111.1, the Senate resolves that debate on a motion not sponsored by the majority or minority party or a committee shall be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover, 20 minutes for the majority party official responder, 20 minutes for the minority party official responder, and 15 minutes for each other senator speaking. And further, that 15 minutes before the time expires, the mover shall be called upon to reply. Honorable Senators, I see there are members who have made requests to contribute. Senator Wakoli and Senator Manzo, I believe. All right, then I will then proceed to put the question. Honorable Senators, I now put the question that, pursuant to Standing Order 111.1, the Senate resolves that debate on a motion not sponsored by the majority or minority party or a committee shall be limited in the following manner. A maximum of 3 hours with not more than 20 minutes for the mover, 20 minutes for the majority party official responder, 20 minutes for the minority party official responder, and 15 minutes for each other senator speaking. And further that, 15 minutes before the time expires, the mover shall be called upon to reply. Now, honorable senators, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Let's call the next order.
Order number 14, procedural motion, limitation of debate on adjournment motion.
Majority Leader, proceed to move.
Rise to move the following motion, which is the limitation of debate during an adjournment motion. That notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order number 111.4, the debate on any motion for adjournment of the Senate to a day other than the next normal sitting day in accordance with the calendar of the Senate shall be limited to a maximum of 2 hours with not more than 15 minutes for each senator speaking, after which the Senate shall adjourn without question put, provided that when the period of recess proposed by any such motion does not exceed 9 calendar days, the debate shall be limited to a maximum of 30 minutes and shall be confined to the question on the adjournment. Another procedural motion, Mr. Speaker, to give life to Standing Order 111.4. I request Senator Eddie Okech to second. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Okech.
Chair, this is a procedural motion, therefore I second.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 111.4, the debate on any motion for the adjournment of the Senate to a day other than the next normal sitting day in accordance with the calendar of the Senate shall be limited to a maximum of 2 hours with not more than 15 minutes for each senator speaking, after which the Senate shall adjourn without question put, provided that when the period of recess proposed by any such motion does not exceed 9 calendar days, the debate shall be limited to a maximum of 30 minutes and shall be confined to the question of adjournment. Now, honorable senators, similar to the motion that we've just dealt with, this is as put a procedural motion, and pursuant to Standing Order 84.2, I make a determination that this matter does not affect the counties. I do, therefore, in the absence of any member wishing to make comments to it, proceed to put the question. Therefore, honorable senators, I put the question that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 111.4, the debate on any motion for the adjournment of the Senate to a day other than the next normal sitting day in accordance with the calendar of the Senate shall be limited to a maximum of 2 hours with not more than 15 minutes for each senator speaking, after which the Senate shall adjourn without question put, provided that when the period of recess proposed by any such motion does not exceed 90 calendar days, the debate shall be limited to a maximum of 30 minutes and shall be confined to the question of adjournment. Now, honorable members, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order, please.
Order number 15, procedural motion, limitation of debate on the motion on the President's address to Parliament.
The Leader of Majority.
Speaker, this is a rise to move the following motion, which is a limitation of debate on the motion on the President's address to Parliament, that pursuant to Standing Order number 27.6, the Senate resolves that the debate on the motion on the President's address to Parliament shall be limited to a maximum of 3 sitting days with not more than 15 minutes for each of the senators speaking, excluding the mover in moving and replying, who shall be limited to 30 minutes in either case, and that the Majority Leader and the Senate Minority Leader shall be limited to 30 minutes each. Mr. Speaker, this is a motion actually that will have effect only once, because the President addresses Parliament only once a year. And it's just to limit the time. Each senator 15 minutes and 30 minutes to the majority and minority leader. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and request the leader of minority, Senator Madzayo, to second.
Senator Manzayo, proceed to take the stand.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do second.
Now, honorable senators, I now propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 27.6, the Senate resolves that the debate on the motion on the presidential address shall be limited to a maximum of 3 sitting days, with not more than 15 minutes for each senator speaking, excluding the mover in moving and replying, who shall be limited to 30 minutes in either case, and that the Senate Majority Leader and the Senate Minority Leader shall be limited to 30 minutes each. Similarly, honorable members, this being a procedural motion, and in the absence of members keen on contributing to this motion, I make a determination pursuant to Standing Order 84.2 that this is a matter that does not affect counties, and therefore proceed to put the question that pursuant to Standing Order 27.6, the Senate resolves that the debate on the motion on the presidential address shall be limited to a maximum of 3 sitting days, with not more than 15 minutes for each senator speaking, excluding the mover in moving and replying, who shall be limited to 30 minutes in either case, and that the Senate Majority Leader and the Senate Minority Leader shall be limited to 30 minutes each. Honorable senators, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Honorable senators, will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 16, the Environment Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 23 of 2024, second reading. Resumption of debate interrupted on Thursday, 31st October 2024.
Honorable members, this bill was actually moved by Senator Abdul Haji, and it is a resumption of the debate that was interrupted on Thursday, 31st of October 2024. It is open to members because the members who had spoken to it is Senator Haji as well as the seconder Senator Chirargei. Honorable members, it's open for you to contribute to it. Give the leader of majority the microphone.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I thank you. This is an extremely important bill because environment is quickly gaining its rightful place in the global conversation, Mr. Speaker, on how to take care of our environment. And there's no bigger conversation in the world right now, actually, that I can imagine that attracts more attention more than the management of our environment. And we continue to face many challenges, Mr. Speaker, as a country because of how we have treated this subject with either contempt or lack of serious significance, not knowing full well the effects or the changes and of a change in the environment due to poor management. This act or this bill, Mr. Speaker, wants to amend the Forest Conservation and Management Act so as to make further provisions for afforestation and reforestation in Kenya, to promote tree planting in all counties, to amend the Climate Change Act as well, so that you provide for the settling and formulation of strategies to achieve the annual carbon sequestration targets and connected purposes. Two very important topics. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that the President has led the country in a rallying call to try and achieve this country to plant 15 billion trees by the year 2030, Mr. Speaker. And I know that previously I have seen updates actually from the Ministry of Environment, but of late, I don't know how well we are doing. All I know is that occasionally I see cabinet secretaries dress in those khaki clothes and they visit various parts of the country, Mr. Speaker, and plant trees, then disappear. The unfortunate thing, Mr. Speaker, is that this has not been extended to the other arms of the government. And I hope as a leadership, and leadership here means everybody who has responsibility, we could actually buy into this clarion call so that in any area that is under jurisdiction, I'd wish, for example, to see the Chief Justice lead all staffers and members of the bench in the judiciary on such an exercise, because the environment is for all of us. It shouldn't be left to the national government alone and the cabinet minister and the PSs, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sorry, to actually try and achieve these targets. The same applies to us here in Parliament. I don't know how many people are aware. I don't know if I was to ask Senator for Makueni off the top of your head, if you're aware of what your targets are as a county, what is the percentage of afforestation in your county, what is it that you need to do, what are the targeted areas. I know that there is a climate action group. I think it's led by Senator Moses Kajwang, if I'm not wrong. And I challenged him because I met him in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, during COP26. And he was properly kitted in a very nice suit, and he said, this year, Majority Leader, I want to be a climate champion, and I want to speak to you so that you appreciate. And I know that subsequently they went to Dubai, but I want him to extend his activities beyond the conferences and really challenge us. I appreciate his zeal and energy in terms of ensuring that you make all your colleagues climate woke. That is a term that young people use for people that are conscious and aware of what needs to happen in our climate environment. And I wish that Senator Moses Kajwang was here when you're discussing this bill, Mr. Speaker, so that he leads us into appreciating what role we can play as legislators as well. Because many times I have seen us join in on the efforts that are being carried out by members of the executive alone. I believe that as a legislature, we need to have a more impressive record and our contribution into making our environment better. I know, for example, I have visited many parliaments, and some of the most beautiful parliaments that you visit, Mr. Speaker, are those that have even taken care of the environment better. I think this institution, ours, the campus of this Parliament of Kenya, scores very poorly on that particular rank, because we felled almost all trees, and there's hardly any tree within the corridors and the parliamentary square. And we need to begin even from our own institution just to set an example of a dedication of the percentage of the total land that belongs to Parliament here, Mr. Speaker, that we plant trees that 20, 50 years down the line, people can recall. I believe on important days, Mr. Speaker, Senate should lead actually in.
Honorable Senators, if you are consulting, please do so in low tones to allow the Leader of Majority to contribute in peace. For those who are interrupting with loud engagements within the chamber. Proceed, Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I was explaining that as Parliament, we have a responsibility that perhaps part of the things that we can consider on special days and special occasions, when things happen, and when we have dignitaries, occasionally we have presidents and heads of governments who visit Parliament. Apart from these traditional rites of coming to lay flowers at the grave of a founding father of the nation, an important exercise, Mr. Speaker, I believe that they should be able to plant trees as well, Mr. Speaker. And we set up a good corner for them so that we continue to lead as an example, and Parliament does not look as bare as it looks today. This bill, Madam Speaker, proposes actually a further amendment actually to the Forest Conservation and Management Act by promotion of afforestation and reforestation in arid and semi-arid parts of the country. Extremely important, Mr. Speaker, because I know for a fact that our arid and semi-arid parts of the country needs that particular challenge. I know Forest Conservation Management Act is also being amended, meaning that you're introducing now a person who shall be authorized to replace each harvested tree in accordance with the directions of the service, Madam Speaker, so that each time we fell trees, and I'm not sure, but I think it's still on. I know that I think 3 or 4 years ago there was a ban on logging, despite the fact that logging is an extremely important industry. You need to counterbalance that, Mr. Speaker, so that for every tree that you fell, there should be a commensurate number of those that you plant, Madam Speaker. This is an extremely important bill, Mr. Speaker, that is being brought actually by one of the senators that comes from an extremely arid region. And I'm extremely happy by what Senator Abdul is doing, because despite coming from Garissa, a county whose forest cover, I want to believe, is hardly maybe 3 or 4%, I'm not very certain, that he's leading in the effort of trying to make those parts of the country also be properly, have good forest cover. And it is possible, because we have seen this done in other parts of the world that are even more arid than Garissa, where Senator Abdul comes. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, is on this issue of settling and formulation of strategies to achieve the annual carbon sequestration targets and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, that is an important conversation as well. I know with the coming in of President Trump in America, and he's very radical in the opposite way views on how to do climate management, the world will be affected, Mr. Speaker, because of companies that will now perhaps not feel the urge to meet their share of trying to be environmentally sustainable in their practices, Mr. Speaker. But I don't believe that money alone was the only motivation, and I don't believe that this was a responsibility of one country. The rest of all of us, the countries that believe in a green and a more sustainable environment, Mr. Speaker, should carry on the dream. Who knows, in other years to come, some of these countries that today do not see the need to lead these efforts, Mr. Speaker, will be calling upon us, you know, to assist them in one way or the other. Therefore, I want to lend my support into this very noble exercise of ensuring that actually each county achieves their targets. And Senator Abdul will lay out bare the strategies that the various county governments will do so to ensure that we achieve that particular regard. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with those many comments, I'd wish to leave it at that. I know that Section 21 has provided for the functions of forestry on the county government, which includes something very important, and which is 21C, which is the preparation of an annual report with the approval of the county assembly. That is, our county assemblies will actually confirm, you know, that report on the activities of the county government in relation to this act and any national policies for forest management, so that each governor can actually give an account of basing on all the activities, because all these forestation and afforestation activities, Mr. Speaker, they happen in counties. And it is important for county governments to give an account and say, in our county, we have achieved our target to have grown from this number to the other. And the county assembly members who come from the various wards that make up a county to affirm and share that report. I don't know whether, Senator Abdul, it is possible to push and ensure that those reports are actually filed with the Senate, apart from just being approved in the National Assembly, so that we are also custodians of the reports that come from these county assemblies. With those many remarks, I beg to support. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Senator Wambua Enoch.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
I also rise to support this bill, the Environment Laws Amendment Bill 2024, being sponsored by a brother or friend senator from Garissa. Now, Speaker, I want to make a few comments on the whole issue around environmental conservation and climate change in relation to this bill. To begin with, Mr. Speaker, I think a way must be found now than ever before to move from this archaic way of doing things in terms of tree planting, where we set aside a day, we say today is a tree planting day, we go and buy trees from nurseries, we distribute those trees to people, they go plant the trees and they go. And as a Speaker, you can be very sure, if one tree out of 20 that are planted survives, it's a miracle. As Speaker, we need to begin to take tree planting a little bit more seriously, and for people, for leaders to be hands-on in dealing with this matter of climate change and environmental conservation. As Speaker, I want to thank Senator Aji for proposing this bill. And as the majority leader said, I wish some space will be found either expressly or implicitly, Mr. Speaker, in this bill to ensure that we as leaders take the front row in pushing forward the agenda of environmental conservation. I have this in mind, Mr. Speaker. The place to begin in ensuring that then the ideals of this executive succeed in planting 15 billion trees by 2030 would be to begin with our own homes. That the Speaker, every senator in this Senate has a place that they call home. If every senator would establish a forest of their own definition at their own home, whether it is 20 trees or 30 trees or 50 trees or 100 trees, and nurture those trees, Mr. Speaker, to maturity. Then we will begin to speak to other people about forest cover and about conserving our environment. The next stop, Mr. Speaker, and this is important, would be to move to our immediate environment in the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya. So, Speaker, I want to challenge the mover of this, the promoter of this bill, to work closely with the administration of Parliament and make sure that this Senate, each senator gets a tree, a seedling, and we grow them within this environment, within the compound of Parliament, and make sure that the remaining 2.5 years, each senator nurtures their own seedling to maturity. The Speaker, if we begin that way, then we'll be giving effect to serious environmental conservation. Because, Mr. Speaker, conserving our environment and increasing our forest cover will not happen in boardrooms. It will not happen, Mr. Speaker, on the floor of this Senate. It will happen on the ground, real trees being grown by real people, and those trees, Mr. Speaker, being nurtured to maturity. The next step, Mr. Speaker, would be for us as leaders, as senators. Each senator in this Senate is a former student in a primary school somewhere in this country. What about, Mr. Speaker, each one of us retreating to our respective primary schools it would mean that there will be, at the very least, 67 primary schools in the Republic where we establish forests sponsored and spearheaded by senators, Mr. Speaker. Then, if that is achieved, Mr. Speaker, now we can begin to talk to the public about environmental conservation. Mr. Speaker, even as I support this bill, I am reminded, those of us who went to school to primary school when President Moi was in office, he had a very serious clarion call on environmental conservation. That time, it was being called, it was dealing with soil erosion. In Kiswahili, they called it momonyoko wa udongo. And I remember the former president went around the country, literally building gabions, stopping, soil erosion. I remember very fondly when he visited Kitui. At that time, I was a very small boy. And he went to a place called Chane. Chane is in Matinyane ward of Kitui West constituency. And he helped to build gabions just to stop soil erosion. Mr. Speaker, this exercise of conserving our environment, increasing forest cover, making sure that we have a country that attains a better percentage of forest cover is an exercise that, Mr. Speaker, must now, better than ever before, move from boardrooms, from the floor of the house, to where that needs to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I say this, fully cognizant of the fact that, Mr. Speaker, as the ML has said, there has been a ban on logging, but that ban was lifted. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, and I remember this very sadly, on Monday this week, as I was driving at night from Laikipia, where I had attended the burial of the father of our friend, our colleague, Senator Kenywa, I saw many, many trucks leaving forests, I think they're badeas, carrying huge, huge logs. And I remember telling my driver that this one tree here must have been in existence for more than 50, 60 years. And just one night, somebody wakes up, they go cut these trees as they pursue a profit motive. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge the administration that, Mr. Speaker, even as we continue to deal with this issue of climate change, even as we want to support local businesses, the timber industry, to strike a healthy balance between allowing logging and ensuring that we achieve the target of 15 billion trees by 2030. Mr. Speaker, if there is one area where I personally will support the initiative of the National Executive, it is in the area of climate change. Because, Mr. Speaker, if we don't fix our environment, if we don't fix our forests now, then, Mr. Speaker, future generations will judge us very harshly. Because the rate at which we are destroying our environment, the rate at which we are felling trees, the rate at which we are doing logging, Mr. Speaker, it's a danger, Mr. Speaker, to the future sustainability of our forests in this country. Mr. Speaker, lastly, I want to mention that this bill, though it speaks to environmental conservation and forest cover and legislations that need to be put in place and the changes that we need to put, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that this happens, Mr. Speaker, the work to be done is on our land, Mr. Speaker, and that work must be work that each one of us, every leader in this country, must take a lead role to ensure that we do our part in conserving our own environment. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support.
Thank you, Senator Kio Wambua. Senator Esther Okay, Nyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also wish to support this amendment bill by Senator Abdul Haji. I think this is a conversation we've been having for quite some time, though worryingly this conversation is sticking at the top. I have tried doing my own analysis and trying to gather views, especially from ordinary people, that's the general public. Most of them are actually hearing about why we need to plant trees to help deal with climate change, or rather have it as an economic activity that they should engage in. But most of them do not actually understand what we are seeking to achieve. So it is very sad that this remains an elite conversation, which shouldn't be the case. Climate change needs to be a subject that our citizens need to understand, and understand that planting trees is not just for you. You can equally make money and also contribute to tackling some of the environmental challenges we are experiencing, Mr. Speaker. When I actually look at some of the proposed amendments that are coming in, like formulating and implementing plans for sourcing tree seeds and seedlings that are suitable for the environment, immediately I see an economic opportunity, because our people can then go ahead and have so many of these seed beds, have seedlings which can be purchased for planting, and in one way or another you're making money. I think this should actually not be left to the county governments only, but we also need to accommodate individual farmers or individual people who want to do tree planting for commercial purpose. Mr. Speaker, the issue of also having to establish tree nurseries in each county, this needs to go beyond the political jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, because yes, counties are going to do this, but without the goodwill, why don't we have this trickle down even to schools, social places, and encourage people quickly to take this up, so that it doesn't look like it's governments which are in charge of tree planting alone? Because the moment you want people to join an activity, you need to make them feel part and parcel and see how they're actually going to benefit out of it. When you actually want one support, you have to appeal to their interest. So Kenyans, beyond being called to participate in tree planting, need to also look at the economic value they are going to derive from actually venturing into this, and the larger effect it's going to play to the environment, because now we have so many other challenges that we are facing as a result of climate change, and we need to sensitize our people. And that's why I've been emphasizing on civic education. Civic education, not just for political matters, but for people to understand, for Kenyans to have the culture of planting trees right from way when they grow, going to school, and then when now they are citizens who can make decisions for this country. Once we have that culture, we will not have a huge problem whereby we have to run campaigns to tell people why they need to plant trees. So in as much as we have those challenges, Senator Haji, this is a very good proposal that you're bringing to this House, not just for semi-arid areas, even in places like Kisii, where we feel like it's, we are in highland areas. People need to still venture into afforestation, so that when we are cutting down others, we are planting other trees, so that we don't actually have our riverbeds running dry. And you know the result that will actually happen is that we'll have shortage of water, and the next thing you're seeing is even school girls having to search for water for long distances, and that trickles down to affecting the way in which they perform in school. Mr. Speaker, I equally see the bill proposing that we will have the Forest Conservation Management Act being amended to include that a person who harvests a tree shall replace the tree under the direction in an area designated by the service. How are we going to, Senator Haji, I think you also need to include, how are we going to know who is cutting which tree where? So that we are keeping track of the numbers we have and what we are losing and the replacements we are having. But generally, this is a very timely proposal, which we need to sensitize people on a daily basis wherever we are attending our functions, be it funerals, be it marketplaces, because like I said, we are losing the opportunity to make the people own tree planting. It's remaining an elite conversation, which after days of this initiative, like in Kenya being launched, ordinary people are yet to understand what we are talking about. So I support this proposal, and I want us to own it and talk about it wherever we are attending our functions, because it goes beyond we who are speaking today. Future generations will have an environment that they can actually thrive effectively and also make money out of tree planting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Esther Okinyuri. Senator Manso, you appear as though you want to speak, but I haven't seen any request from your end. Sorry, yes, got Senator Manso Daniel. Please proceed to contribute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this very important bill. And the basis is that climate change is real. And the law we've been having in place is a very old law, Mr. Speaker. And bearing in mind that we have a new constitution, there was every need to align the current law with the new constitution, and at the same time, put this squarely as a devolution matter. Devolution is very important when it comes to afforestation. And one of, although this has been acted for a long time as a national affair, there is every need to devolve it to the counties and make sure that the systems of governance in the counties participate fully in this particular affair. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, trees have been cut without being replaced, and especially in the drier parts of the country, it is even more appalling, Mr. Speaker. It is important that every single county in the country has its own program on tree planting. One of the biggest challenges, Mr. Speaker, has been the seedlings. And I believe from the county assembly, there should be a program whereby the counties take responsibility to make sure appropriate seedlings in accordance with the climate of that particular county are planted. Mr. Speaker, what has been happening is that we have a tree planting day. It's not well organized. Then you plant trees, some of which even do not survive in that particular climate. And as soon as we leave, with no one watering them, all of them dry up. And then we repeat this year after year, and still we don't have as many trees as we should be having. We are aware that, Mr. Speaker, there are areas where trees are done for commercial purposes and are harvested and replaced accordingly. And those people are in a commercial venture. But we are also aware of places, Mr. Speaker, where trees have been cut carelessly and have not been replaced over the years, and desertification has continued. Mr. Speaker, anybody sampling any part of the country, wherever trees have been planted properly, and especially a tree which grows in that particular area. In Makueni, Mr. Speaker, we have a tree called mukau, which grows naturally in the dry areas. And even when you plant it, and the rains are insufficient, or it is not even watered, it still grows because also naturally grows around that area. And you find those who have done recover forest cover have an organized forest cover of a natural tree, indigenous trees, which grow naturally in that area and are very suitable for commercial purposes, because that particular tree in Makueni called mukau is very ideal for timber. and also stays leafy for a long time, and is also eaten up by animals when there is insufficient food. So a part of the branches are a delicacy to goats. And therefore, you find that the county governments have a lot of trust land. The water towers in many parts of the country are under the county governments, and these are the ones which should be planted accordingly, so that all those beautiful hills which are running dry are able to be planted with the trees which grow there naturally. And unless the county government takes this as a responsibility, it may not be well coordinated by the national government on its own. And therefore, the county government identifies these areas and afforests them. Mr. Speaker, when I was at the National Assembly, I had, after the new constitution, there has been transition. And there was one of the water towers in my village which had gone misused for some time. So I took an initiative to employ one of people in the office of Member of Parliament to particularly take care of the forest issues, because under CDF you have 1% or 2% for environment conservation. And we were able to plant trees, and even by naturally keeping people away from cutting trees, the natural bushes grow, and the coverage becomes very good, and the ecosystem rebalances afresh. And I believe the county government now has a capacity to employ quite a number of people, because not every single member of parliament will have enough monies, or every single member of National Assembly will have enough monies to manage the conservation. In fact, that 2% is used to do gabions. And if you do as many gabions as possible in the rivers, then you also have some water to have seedling areas. And then you are able to grow, the normal trees for timber and the normal trees for environmental conservation. We also have now another area of environmental conservation which has come up recently. In a mango growing area or citrus growing area like Makueni, we are now able to have mangoes as forests, and at the same time as a commercial activity. And we are even processing them to mango juice. And a lot of Kenyans come down to Makueni to buy mangoes to export and for commercial purposes. So that also is best done by the county governments, because it's, if you are going to do fruit, fruit growing trees also as forests, and also for purposes of, the environmental conservation, and even to make sure that there's a tree cover, and to make sure that the environment is taken care of, and at the same time a commercial activity takes place. This is, it needs also at times, protection from harmful insects, spraying, and also making sure that the fruit is taken care of, but also in a forest. And they have come up with many of that. And another area which is very important, and we'll be discussing it later in the House, I've seen the new Cooperatives Act. Tree growing and environmental conservation can also be done through cooperatives in the countryside. And the moment you organize in a cooperative manner, is you involve the people better, the purpose is set, and they will have targets, and the cooperatives are also devolved. They are working at the county government. So that's another area we should look at, because you see, laws can work together. If you have an environmental law, you have a forest law, and at the same, you have a cooperative law, whereby cooperatives can be organized to grow trees, for forest cover and for commercial purposes. Then it becomes better in terms of mobilizing the people to make sure that tree planting takes place. And even in cases where the trees need to be watered, then you have an organized team which will make sure that these trees get there. But I want to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, that we will be best if we do seedlings appropriate to a climate area. And also if we conserve the trustlands, Mr. Speaker, so that the normal natural bushes or trees can be allowed to grow, to make sure also that area is covered. And I believe through this, Mr. Speaker, and this very important law, we are going to conserve our environment, we are going to improve the climate of the world, we are going to deal with the poisoning of the climate by carbons, we are going to slow speed of wind, and even in a lot of occasions, then we are going to make sure that rains come back to areas they have abandoned, because the crowds will simply be swept quickly by the winds, because the trees are the ones who slow the winds and eventually increase rainfall, and that goes on to improve the ecosystem because it is repeated and it continues to happen. And therefore, availability of water is important. Damming, like Thwake Dam, silted dams, and even porous dams, and even gabions, to make sure water is here and at the same time trees are grown and planted. Mr. Speaker, I want to support and congratulate the Senator for Garissa and hope that this will apply in the harsh climates like his county and my county, and will increase the tree cover of the country. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support, and I thank you.
Thank you, Senator Manzo. Senator Mundigi.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi niweze kuchangia mjadala wa Senator Haji wa Garissa kuhusu upandaji wa miti ama mambo ya mazingira. Asante Bwana Spika, yangu ni kusema mjadala huu utasaidia kaunti zote 47. Sasa siku hizi tunaongea mambo ya kaunti 47, tuongee mambo ya milima, tunaongea mambo ya kaunti 47. Ningeomba serikali iweze kufuatilia Bwana Spika. Hii ni mjadala inaweza kusaidia kila mwananchi kutoka ule ako chini mpaka ule wa juu, ama ule wa juu mpaka wa chini, kwa sababu mambo ya upandaji wa miti itatusaidia sana. Kwa sababu ningekumbuka ambaye ilikuwako wakati tulikuwa watoto, wakati wa uongozi wa Rais Moi, kulikuwa na mambo ya mmonyoko wa udongo na mambo ya upandaji wa miti, na ilikuwa inafuatiliwa na njia ile ya makini sana, na ndio naona miti mingi ambaye wale wanaserekea saa hii kwenda kuimba miti kwa msitu ni ile miti ilipandwa wakati huo. Bwana Spika, ningeomba kama tunaweza fuatilia maneno kama ile ya zamani, pia tunaweza kufaidika kaunti zetu zote. Kitu ya kwanza ningeomba Bwana Spika, mambo ya upandaji wa miti ifuatiliwe na njia ile inafaa, kwa sababu unakuta kaunti nyingi Bwana Spika haina maji ya kutumia, na pia hiyo maji ikitumika hiyo ingine inaweza kutumika mambo ya upandaji wa miti. Bwana Spika, ningeunga mkono, kwa sababu kama kaunti yangu ya Embu County unakuta kuna sehemu kubwa sana ni mambo iko na ukame kama Garissa County. Kwa hiyo ningeomba Bwana Spika, tukifuatilia serikali yetu ya Kenya Kwanza wezi kuangalia njia maanani ikiangalia kaunti zile zingine Bwana Spika, ndio kama kaunti tuwe kwa mstari wa kwanza tuweze kupata maji, kama damu zile tuliahidiwa na serikali, kama Kamomo Dam, kama Zambaran Dam, kama zile zingine zote, na pia kuwe na water pans. Hizo zote maji ikipelekwa hiyo milima ambaye kama kienda upande ya Mbere, iende Kiambere, mlima Kiambere na Kianjiru na pia Ndune, utakuta watu watatumia hiyo maji na njia ya kutumia hiyo maji, na pia Bwana Spika itasaidia sisi mambo ya upandaji wa miti, na wakati huo pia itatusaidia kila shule zote za msingi na sekondari zitakuwa na njia ya upandaji wa miti, na itakuwa tumeweka maanani. Bwana Spika, ningekumbuka zamani wakati nilikuwa mtoto mdogo Bwana Spika, nilikuwa najua wakati tulikuwa na gonjeka, wakati ule hospitali zilikuwa mbali sana, lakini kwa ile misitu ya zamani ingawa ilikatakatwa, nilikuwa naona mtu akiumwa na tumbo Bwana Spika, ama akiumwa na kichwa, unakuta anaingia kwa ile msitu, anakuta kuna dawa, anakunywa hiyo mti, ama anaweka kwa kidonda, inapona. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, ningeomba hii mjadala wa Bwana Anji iweze kuweka miti kama hiyo, kuwe na wanasayansi wanaweza kuangalia miti kama hiyo. Bwana Spika, miti kama hiyo itakuwa ikitusaidia mambo ya kupata hela, na pia itatusaidia mambo ya kupata dawa, na pia mambo ya mazingira. Wakati ule wa zamani Bwana Spika, watu wengi kulikuwa na mambo ya mmonyoko wa udongo Bwana Spika, walikuwa na pia njia ya mitaro ilikuwako. Kwa hiyo serikali ningeomba isikilie hii maanane, pia iajiri wafanyikazi ambaye wako na elimu ya kutosha, Bwana Spika, wa kuonyesha watu vile watapanda watakata mitaro ndio tuweze kuzuia maji. Bwana Spika, mambo ni mingi sana. Kaunti zetu unakuta gavana wengi hawafikirii mambo ya mazingira. Bwana Spika, kuko na makaunti, kuko na ile town kidogo, Bwana Spika, kuwe na pia maofisa ya afya weze kuendelea kule masinani. Kama kuna takataka nyingi kwa market zetu, iweze kuwa kupelekwa na njia ile nafaa, inaondolewa zote, ndio iweze kuwa ainuki vibaya, ndio uwe kaunti zetu na watu wakitembea kwa njia hiyo kaunti inakuwa kama mzuri. Bwana Spika, wiki mbili zilizopita nikiwa mwenyekiti mdogo wa kamati ya agriculture, tulitembea kule mji wa Dodoma. Unakuta kwa sababu saa hii wanaandaa mji wao uwe mzuri, unakuta wametengeneza vizuri, kuko na mambo ya miti inatoka huko, na unasindwa ukitoka kwa mpaka wa Kenya na Tanzania ama mpaka wa Kenya na Uganda, unasindwa kwani Kenya yetu inaendaje? Kwa hiyo management ya mambo ya kaunti zetu ama serikali zetu unakuta iko na sina na kaunti zingine. Enda ukute saa hii ile miti mikubwa inatoka Uganda inakuja hapa. Kwa hiyo inaangalia. Bwana Spika, ningeomba hata mambo ya biashara, mambo ya ukatanji wa miti iweze kuangaliwa. Bwana Spika, ningeomba hata kuna vitu nyingi sana kama watu wale wanakata manjani ama kitu yoyote ambayo inaweza kutusaidia mambo ya usuru iweze kuwekwa maanane. Kama Bwana Spika, ningesema kama kaunti yetu ya Embu kuna shinde hapa na pale juu ya mti inaitwa murasi chokomogoka, inaweza ufanye upelelezi uweze kuona kama itatete hata kama ndawa ama vitu zingine inasaidia nchi yetu ya Kenya tuweze kupata vitu kama hizo. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, naunga mkono, lakini mpaka kuwe na wensahanzi wanaweza kuangalia vile miti yetu tunapanda itatuletea faida gani, itatuletea magonjwa gani, itatusaidia namna gani. Kwa hivyo ningeomba Bwana Spika, mpaka serikali ya Kenya Kwanza iweze kuweka maanane mambo ya upandaji wa miti. Ukute shule zetu zote zinapanda miti siku ile, hata watoto wandogo wako na msitu katika zile shule zetu. Bwana Spika, ingine ningeomba mpaka kuwe mambo ya kukatakata miti. Uwezi kata miti kama una barua ya chief ama ya security ama wale watu wanasimamia misitu. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, hii mjadala ni mzuri, lakini inaweza kuwa mzuri kama tutaweka maanane na pia mpaka tuweke nguvu iweze kufuatiliwa na njia ile inavaa ya haki. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi ikiwa senator wa Embu County Alexander Mundigi, naunga hii mjadala mkono kwa sababu itatusaidia sana mambo hata ya chakula, mambo ya afya na mambo mingi, hata mambo ya kuokota, mambo ya usuri ya county na mambo pia ya national government. Na pia tutakuwa hata nchi za ng'ambo itatusaidia sana kutupa hela, kwa sababu itaonekana nchi yetu ya Kenya itakuwa na mambo ya mazingira itakuwa mzuri. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, ile kitu nasema mambo ya ndawa sana kwa ile miti inapandwa. Kwa sababu unakumbuka wiki mbili iliyopita unakuta kama sasa kuna mambo inayozungumzwa na rais wetu, mambo ya SHA, watu waendelee kujiandikisha kwa SHA ndio waweze kupata mandawa. Mambo ya ajabu, wiki mbili iliyopita wakati rais wa Amerika alichaguliwa, alisema hakuna pesa ya kutusaidia tuweze kununua mandawa. Kwa hiyo kuna miti mingi ikifanywa research ile inafaa, utakuta serikali hata nchi ya ng'ambo ikataa kutupatia hela na nchi ya Kenya ikuwa na shinda na hela, mtu atakuwa anagonjeka kidogo anaingia kwa ile msitu, turudi mambo ya kisamani, na hiyo mambo tukirundi itakuwa inatusaidia ndio tuweze kukaa vizuri. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, mimi naunga mkono mambo ya mazingira vizuri na mambo ya upandaji wa miti nikiwa senator wa Embu County, naunga mkono. Asante. Ni mimi Daktari Alexander Mundigi.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander Mundigi. Senator Fatuma Dula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank Senator for Garissa, Senator Abdul Yusuf Haji, for this bill that is long overdue. Mr. Speaker, or rather the amendment to the bill. Mr. Speaker, the issue of forestation and also climate change is like, it's taken aback, because this is really very important to our country, And we are facing a lot of drought in this country, more specifically in the northern part of the country. And if we seriously actually implement what is within this particular bill, we can be able to achieve a lot. Mr. Speaker, I remember those early days when some of us were young. We used to carry water to school for the purpose of tree planting and watering the trees. And everybody was actually given responsibility to take care of trees in their schools. But of late, you don't see such things happening. And I hope as soon as this bill is actually passed, we should be able to sensitize the schools, the headmasters, and the principals to actually bring back that kind of practice where tree planting and management of the trees is part of our lives. Mr. Speaker, it's important we recognize climate change in our country because it looks like it is changing every minute. And I think if we keep pace with that particular change, we can be able to help our country and also our counties. Mr. Speaker, we need also to review policies that govern tree planting and also climate change to keep pace with the climate change and the happenings in the country, which I believe it is in the amendment of the bill. And I hope once we do that, we should be up to date as far as policies and legislations are concerned in climate change. Gender responsive, as indicated in the bill, is also very important because I'm sure, and I'm not actually demeaning the male, but normally responsibilities given to the female as far as management of a particular issue is really very important because sometimes you will see men alone planting trees. But I think if gender aspect is taken care of it, then we can be able, Mr. Speaker, to seriously take action as far as climate change is concerned. Recently, we've been to Mandera, sorry. I have seen, Mr. Speaker, what county government of Mandera has done in actually greening the county. Mr. Speaker, the county government has actually given some budget to women planting trees and watering trees on daily basis, which is a very serious thing that is going to help those areas, more specifically the northern part of the country, where there are no trees and the climate is actually harsh. Mr. Speaker, implementation of various legislation and policies that is required as far as the law is concerned, just to update ourselves as far as climate change and the implementation is concerned. Mr. Speaker, I have seen some trees in our area, more specifically called madenge, that is causing serious harm in our areas. And I really curse the person who has introduced madenge, especially in northern Kenya, because it's really causing havoc. Animals are affected, human beings are affected. You don't even plant them, you will find them everywhere. And actually they are even dangerous to the kids and also to the animals in our homes. Mr. Speaker, we have to have serious policy as far as madenge is concerned. I have seen in some part of my county, a place called Merti, where women are given some token to be able to clear madenge, which I believe it's something that we really encourage and also ensure as a country that we are done with madenge. There were proposals, Mr. Speaker, earlier on, whether we should get license and approval by the cabinet to use madenge for the purpose of charcoal. I need to check whether that has been done, because if madenge is a tree that is really affecting our people, then we can use it for the purpose of charcoal burning instead of actually cutting down the normal trees. Madenge can be quite useful for the purpose of charcoal burning. Mr. Speaker, I would also request, and I don't know whether it's possible, Senator Haji, to be able to give responsibility to the county government to establish free seedling nurseries in their counties so that members of public can be able to pick those seedlings and plant them. When I look back, I will see Ministry of Environment, which is called Forest Department. normally selling those seedlings. But I think as a country, if we can be able to provide the free seedlings to the members of public, they can be able to plant those trees very well and ensure that they have taken care of them in their counties. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the issue of licensing trees for medicinal purposes. We have so many trees and plants that are quite useful for the purpose of medicinal. Mr. Speaker, we need to carry out research in our country to make sure that those seedlings are useful. You will see that today, if you go to the chemists and hospitals to buy those drugs, they are quite expensive. When we have actually trees and herbs that are available to ourselves, and it's only a matter of actually financing research to make sure that they are utilized properly and they are going to be used in a proper manner, then they can be able to help our country, and we need to license those individuals who are ready to convert the trees and plants for the purpose of medicinal purposes. Otherwise, I wish to congratulate Senator Haji for this important amendment to the bill, and I hope it will see the light of the day, and also implementation of the same by relevant institution. And also we should be able to, Mr. Speaker, finally, to domesticate international obligations as far as we are concerned in our country, because you will find sometimes you have international obligations at the international level, but most of the time we don't domesticate them, and that has also been provided for in the bill, and I hope it will be able to help us and enrich the bill and also the objective it was actually proposed for. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Dula. Senator Miraj.
Asante Bwana Spika kwa kuweza kunipa fursa na mimi niweze kuchangia katika mswada huu ambao umeweza kupendekezwa na seneta kutoka gatuzi ya Garissa. Kwa kweli Bwana Spika, nikiweza kuungana na maseneta waliotangulia, ni dhahiri shahiri ya kwamba mabadiliko ya tabia nchi yamezuru mazingira yetu sisi kama taifa, hususan kule ambao ni maeneo ambayo hayana maji yameweza kuwa kame zaidi, na maeneo ambayo yanaweza kupata mvua yamepata mvua ya kupitiliza hadi kuharibu mimea ambayo ilikuwa iwe chakula cha kitaifa. Bwana Spika, niweze kupongeza anwani inayopendekeza kuweza kupandwa kwa miti mingi zaidi katika maeneo kame. Hii ni dhahiri shahiri ya kwamba rais wetu alipoingia mamlakani aliweza kutenga siku moja ya kitaifa na kuweza kuiweka huru ili taifa zima liweze kupanda miti. Na katika kauli yake mbiu aliweza kupendekeza ya kwamba wakati tunakata keki siku zetu za kuzaliwa, tusiweze kukata keki bali kupanda mti ili kuhakikisha kizazi kinachokuja kinaweza kujivunia kwa yale ambayo tumewatayarishia kuhusiana na mabadiliko tabia nchi. Nikitaka kuwapongeza washikadau tofauti tofauti katika gatuzi yangu ya Mombasa, akiwemo mbunge wa Jomvu Bwana Badi Twalib akishirikiana na Wizara ya Usalama wa Ndani, ambao mpaka sasa wameweza kupanda miti takriban 100,000 katika maeneo ya Ganahola Creek. Bila kumsahau kakangu Amarba Wazir ambaye amejitolea kidedea kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba gatuzi yetu ya Mombasa imeweza kupandwa miti mingi zaidi. Bila ya kumsahau waziri wangu wa mabadiliko tabia nchi Bi Emily, natumai utaweza kuupata ujumbe huu. Uliweza kuja kwa ofisi yangu ya seneta maalum na ukataka ushirikiano kwamba na Mombasa kweli ni gatuzi ndogo ambayo haina sehemu nyingi za kuweza kupanda miti. Lakini kwa kauli yako mwaka wa 2023 tarehe 22 tuliweza kushirikiana pamoja na wakfu wa Mama Haki kuweza kupanda miti 200 katika maeneo ya Kikoani Cemetery. Hii ni kuonesha jitihada na umoja baina ya viongozi wa serikali kuu na serikali ya ugatuzi kuweza kuona kwamba tunaifikia ile ruwaza ya kupanda miti bilioni 1 katika taifa letu la Kenya. Bwana Spika, kuna mapendekezo ya kwamba katika gatuzi zetu 47 kwenye mswada huu tuweze kuwa na nasari. Nimefurahi sana kuona kwamba sisi kama bunge la seneti tumekuja kuweza kuoanisha malengo yetu kama wasimamizi wa magatuzi 47, kuona ya kwamba tunafikia ruwaza ya kiulimwengu, kwa sababu mabadiliko ya tabia ya nchi hayatuzuru sisi tu kama taifa la Kenya, bali yanazuru mataifa ulimwenguni. Ndiposa tusipojipanga kuweza kutunga sheria kama hizi na kujipanga na vitendo, basi tutaenda kuangamia kama ulimwengu. Bwana Spika, baada ya uteuzi wangu niliweza kuwa na azma ya kutaka kupanda miti milioni 1 katika gatuzi 6 za mkoa wa zamani wa Pwani. Nashukuru kwa ushirikiano na taasisi tofauti pamoja na madirekta wa wakfu wangu, tuliweza kuanza kupanda miti maeneo ya Dongo Kundu kule juu, na kwa hakika tumeambiwa na kuimbiwa wimbo wa kwamba ni tabia yetu sisi hati viongozi wa kisiasa kufanya jambo, kupiga picha na kuondoka. Lakini kwa sababu nilikuwa na ari, Bwana Spika, niliweza kutafuta vijana wa kike ambao waliweza kutelekezwa wakapata mimba za mapema, nikawabunia ajira na nimekuwa nikiwalipa kiwango cha shilingi 200 kila Ijumaa waweze kuenda kuangalia ile miti ambayo tuliipanda na waweze kuinyunyizia maji. Karibuni nimeweza kutembelea Wizara ya Defense na tukakaa chini na waziri, tukasema badala ya kuzunguka kila mahali kuenda kutafuta mahali pa kupanda miti ambayo inakuwa changamoto, tumeweza kama wakfu wa Mama Haki, Bwana Spika, kutambua eneo la ziwa ambalo liko maeneo ya Likoni na kuliadopt ili tuweze kupanda ile miti 500 ambayo mengine 100 tutapanda katika gatuzi tofauti. Bwana Spika, naezungumzia haya kwa mapenzi makubwa kwa sababu sisi ni viongozi na imesemekana kwamba viongozi ni watu ambao wanastahiki kuangalia maisha ya vizazi vinavyokuja na sio kuangalia kura zinazokuja. Hivyo basi napenda kumpongeza kakangu seneta aliyekuja na mswada huu, na nimpongeze kwa kumwambia ya kwamba historia itakukumbuka kwa sababu umekuja kutatua tatizo ambalo kwa hivi sasa tunaliona tatizo dogo, lakini ni tatizo kubwa. Na ili kufaulu katika hatua kubwa ni lazima tuanze na hatua ndogo. Ninaamini kwamba sheria hii itakapowekwa sahihi na rais wetu wa taifa la Kenya, basi kutakuwa na mageuzi makubwa. Yangu ni kurai kwamba tunapokuwa tuna implement, Bwana Spika, haya mapendekezo ya sheria, ni pendekezo langu kwamba tuweze kuwaweka vijana wa taifa la Kenya ambao wamekumbwa na changamoto ya ajira. Tuweze kuwaweka wale watoto wa kike ambao wametelekezwa kwa kupewa ujauzito, kwa hivyo wamekosa kuwa na imani ya kwamba wanaweza kutoboa katika maisha. Tuwape majukumu, tuwatwike majukumu ya kuweza kusimamia nasari hizi ambazo tunaweza kwenda kuziweka. Hii miche itakayokuwa inapandwa iwe ni miche ambayo itasimamiwa na vijana wa kike na wa kiume wa taifa la Kenya. Iwe ni njia mojawapo ambayo tumewabunia ajira. Kwa hayo mengi machache, hongera kaka, na ningependa bunge hili iweze kuibeba kwa uzito mkubwa sheria hii. Asante Bwana Spika.
Asante sana Senator Miraj. Ndampa nafasi Senator Veronica Maina. Veronica, the microphone, please.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. And let me take this opportunity, first of all, to congratulate the Honorable Senator Abdul Mohamed Haji, the able Senator of Garissa County, for bringing up these much-needed amendments to the legislation that relates to the forest management afforestation and reforestation of our forests. Let me first say the reason why these amendments are so crucial and timely is because a time has come for counties to be very intentional in how they promote afforestation and reforestation. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because we have seen the number of activities that the counties are engaging in, and a lot of questions should arise in the audit of the activities of the counties and the impact of the activities or how resources are being allocated to various functions in the county and the usefulness of the resources, the utility of these resources by the counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is unfortunate that even when we have had a policy of afforestation, the counties have not taken up this challenge in a robust manner to secure our future and the future of our generation, especially in light of the climate change, which has posed a lot of danger to the existence of our communities, existence of our livelihoods, and even our very own existence as human beings, Honorable Speaker. If you visit other jurisdictions, you will find that governments and communities have become very sensitive to how the environment is being managed and how it's being conserved. Indeed, many incentives are offered in other jurisdictions for proper conservation and for proper management of forests, conservations of a natural environment, including lakes and seas, Mr. Speaker. But unfortunately, we have not reached a level of sensitivity within our governance system where it becomes a lifestyle, Honorable Speaker, like what we have seen in places like in Norway. Honorable Speaker, if you visit, you have a chance to visit Norway or Sweden, you will be amazed by the number of forests that are in that area. You'll actually not know you have arrived at their capital city because the forest cover is very high, Honorable Speaker. However, we have had the very unfortunate incidents that pollution from other places has actually, through climate change, affected how our forests have been conserved, how our environment has taken up the climate change, Honorable Speaker, and it is time that these amendments are introduced and become law so that we move from policy to law and bind governments, both levels of government, both at national and at county level, to ensure that it has become our responsibility to implement management plans to ensure all forests, including public forests, Mr. Speaker, are properly conserved and properly managed. Honorable Speaker, we have noted also, and I have noted, Honorable Speaker, that unfortunately this has remained a call from the national government, which is a lone call and only happens if a certain date is stated as a National Tree Planting Day. However, this legislation now must make it a grassroots lifestyle, Mr. Speaker, so that every corner of this nation can then enjoy a better forest cover. And eventually, Mr. Speaker, we will find that even food security will be more assured with a better forest cover. If I look at the expanded functions of the service, I want to congratulate the Honorable Speaker, because it has captured even a sort of an audit system for the forest cover after implementation of this legislation. And I've also noted part of the purpose of this legislation is to go beyond governments and reach out to corporates to be part, and private sector and private entities, community-based organizations, to be part of this exercise of afforestation and reforestation, Mr. Speaker, so that it does not become the president himself calling for 10 billion tree cover. His lone voice alone will not be able to help the whole nation. It has to be a call that must go down to even families, Honorable Speaker, that every family, whatever land they have, they must look and see how much trees can we plant within this homestead. And Honorable Speaker, when we're talking about the trees, it's not just the normal indigenous trees.
It is even the fruit trees which become useful to the families, useful to the community. They also bring in the income from the excess harvest they might have within the homestead. So it is encouraged that everybody takes part of this exercise, Mr. Speaker. And I want to say that finally we have a legislation that is encouraging even the KRA, should we say, our taxman now, to give incentives to corporates and private entities that participate within their community-based, within their CSR mandate. If they can participate in tree planting and demonstrate they have been able to do that, they will have tax deductions. I am hoping someday we are now going to see KRA advertising these incentives to attract investment and contribution from the corporate sector. Honorable Speaker, we know most of the time KRA is known for advertising for people to pay taxes. And as a result, when anybody sees a KRA coming on the screen, they even shake. Some would even switch off the TV fearing that KRA is knocking at their doors. For once, because I know they have needed to mend that image and make it a little better, I hope KRA will seize this opportunity to now advertise incentives and help us do this forest cover across the whole country. In fact, if they do a good job in this advertisement, you will be shocked to see that Safaricom will be the first online to go out to do tree planting. Kenya Airways, whom we have been discussing a lot about in this house, and we are happy to note now, they are posting profits. They are not posting losses after this house had made a very heated, animated debate on why KQ should not be allowed to continue existing. But it is good to see they have been turning around, and I hope they continue to improve their service. We will be seeing Kenya Airways being in the lead in ensuring that we have a forest cover. And corporates are going to account to the public on what they are doing, even in tree planting in different counties. EABL, which has been very, it has been very strategic in the manner in which it's handling matters of environment. We want to see a better report, even from EABL. Improve the tree cover in the counties. And of course, there are many other corporates and entities which are within the Republic of Kenya, which can assist in making sure that we have tree planting programs, and also including the youths in the program. Honorable Speaker, can you imagine that entities may not even have, people may not even have enough seedlings to go planting out there, while working with county government, national government, private entities, the youths can be engaged to do the tree planting nurseries. What has stopped us from doing that? Why can't we now then, after this legislation is passed, use this legislation to ensure that our youths are engaged? And I want to request the Honorable Senator to ensure that in the crafting of this bill, you do an incorporation of how the youths who are energetic and whose energy can be used for tree planting nurseries, for grooming nurseries, to come on board and help us do the seedlings. And I want to also say, looking at the functions that have been assigned under Section 8 of this, the Environmental Laws Amendment Bill 2024, when I look at those functions, and I look at the service being entrusted with ensuring that they implement management plans. In those plans, we want to see inclusion of the youths and the women. And why do I say this? Because I have noted certain groups of women have been trying to do the tree nurseries, Honorable Speaker. And we must be able to encourage them. And I want to ask the private entities to be able to pick up those groups, not those groups who are managing those tree nurseries, and ensure that they are propped up, they are funded, and they are paid for the time they are using to do the tree planting activities. And the service should be mandated together, working together with county governments to ensure that the research is properly done for all the counties, so that the species of trees which are not suitable for certain counties must not be allowed to grow in certain counties or must not be planted, so that it's not a blind exercise. It is an exercise that is informed by research and is informed by best species being sent to the accurate counties to avoid a situation where we have the blue gum. It is called, in Kikuyu it's called ni kama inakunywa maji. It sucks water from the soil. We should not have that blue gum within the areas where it is just accumulating and taking water away from the environment. But in its place, we should have the scientific researchers tell the counties what kind of trees are suitable to which counties. So this service has a lot of work to do. And they must work, not in a commercialized sense, but driven by purpose to ensure that counties will benefit from this legislation. And then, Honorable Speaker, I want to call out and to congratulate the groups that have been doing certain very good work. Babu Project Group, which is driven by 20 women groups in Kamahoha Ward. I have not known them myself, but they have reached out to my office to say that they are doing bamboo for Kenya, and they are women groups. They have organized themselves, made their own initiative, and if these grassroots women can do that, how much more can each of us then do to ensure that we promote afforestation and reforestation? And even for ourselves as individuals, what is it that we can do to help these groups become better? If you are a teacher, a doctor, a professional in your county, can you not support 2-3 groups yourself and ensure that even if you can't do the tree planting yourself, another person is doing the tree planting? It's how innovative we become. That's how we are going to be able to achieve the targets for the number of trees we must plant to ensure that we have proper afforestation and reforestation. Let me also say, Honorable Speaker, that this legislation now seems to lock down on support from even organizations beyond the private entities, including religious organizations, CBOs, mosques, temples, all those organizations which are able to mobilize people. Can we then have a day when all the Christian churches say, today is our day for planting trees? Can we have a day when all the mosques say, today we are the ones driving the tree planting exercise? Because we realize when finally the environment is so bad that it can no longer yield our soils can no longer yield adequate food, it becomes a problem for all of us. It's not just a problem for the government. And then I want to challenge our honorable senator, who's done a very good job in these amendments, to ensure that this legislation, this amendment, is comprehensive in nature. We must no longer have forests like Gong Forest becoming a real scare for anybody passing near there, thinking that if you have a tire burst anywhere near Gong Forest at night, the worst that would happen to you because you are next to a forest is insecurity. We must have a comprehensive legislation that looks at the wholesome factors that are affecting our forests right now as they are situated, from the time of planting, to watering, to growth, to maturity of those trees, to harvesting, to rewards for people who are doing the right thing in afforestation and reforestation, and entities doing the right thing, and to penal sanctions for those who have missed the point, and for those who are doing deforestation in a manner that is outside the framework of this legislation. And, Honorable Speaker, when I speak of security now around these forests, Honorable Speaker, let me note that we have faced a crisis on issues of femicide. It is unfortunate that we find that sometimes the women who have been butchered, their bodies have been either been thrown in rivers or have been thrown in forests. Honorable Speaker, and not just the women, even all persons that may have faced such calamities, Honorable Speaker, it is a big shame and it is terrible. We must also ensure that this forest, the legislation covers the security aspect of the forest so that if a community or a CBO is going to do reforestation in places like Wanjerere up there in Muranga or in Kiamoturi, those women are safe, those youths are safe, to make sure that the exercise continues to become not just challenging, but it becomes rewarding and it becomes something that the community is appreciating. With those many remarks, or few remarks, I want to congratulate the Senator and to hope that this Environmental Laws Amendment Bill will be passed by the rest of the senators. Thank you.
Senator Wamatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to this important amendment that has been moved by a member of County of Garissa, the Senator for Garissa. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, environmental conservation, afforestation, and taking care of the climate change, ensuring that our future generation get a sustainable environment, is a responsibility that we have both legally and morally. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, it cannot be overemphasized that climate change has led mostly the third world countries in Africa to suffer the most. We've seen changes in rainfall pattern, we've seen extreme droughts, we've seen extreme floods, and Mr. Speaker, these has mostly affected children and women living in the rural setups. It is also not lost to us, Mr. Speaker, that fundamentally most of the African nations, Kenya included, failed to establish well-structured urban setups, and therefore, whenever there are disasters that has been occasioned by floods, they suffer the most. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want, therefore, to take this opportunity to thank the Senator for Garissa for having come up with these amendments, because this is what Kenyans are expecting from us. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is in this line that Wamatinga Foundation, one that I founded and lead, established a club toto in primary schools, club teen in secondary schools, so that we can try to encourage the youngsters at their young age to take the environmental protection, tree planting, and most importantly, tree growing as their responsibility. We know that we have had this campaign in successful governments, but, Mr. Speaker, an important misstep that we've continued to miss is that we plant trees, but we don't grow them. Many a times, we've gone on drives and mass planting trees, but then they are left at the mercy of the nature to mature. This is one of the major challenges, and therefore, we need to have a change, a paradigm shift in the way we do it. We move from tree planting to tree growing. And this can only happen if we embrace a culture that will encourage people, and I like what my fellow senator, nominated senator and the future of Muranga has said, that indeed we must create incentives around tree planting so that it does not only attract tax relief, but also in a way that corporates can be able to engage in a way that they'll reduce their tax burden. This way, Mr. Speaker, we'll create enough incentives so that we can ensure that corporates participate in tree planting and tree growing, and we can see that these trees get to maturity. Mr. Speaker, we know that there are new emerging markets of carbon trade. These, and I'm happy to be a part of the RANS committee that tried to debate and debated on the way it can become tradable in the local market. Mr. Speaker, it is also not lost to us that the change in the geopolitics internationally, and more so the election of a new president, Donald Trump, who does not seem to put as much emphasis in extending the helping hand to the third world countries. It is a challenge to us to come up with innovative approaches that will ensure that we sustain our projects without over-reliance on donor funds. And this is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to thank and to encourage all Kenyans. And mostly I would want to start by thanking the President for the introduction of some of these taxes, that is like the eco-levy, that will ensure that people are enticed not to consume goods produced from outside, but at the same time, a kind of a tax regime that will ensure that those who produce locally and environmentally friendly goods also get a kind of tax relief. And these are some of the things, Mr. Speaker, that I think we as senators should be on the forefront to champion, because we must now look at the world dynamics and be also fully aware that the change of geopolitics in the world can affect this country, because mostly we've relied on budgetary bridging gap measures that are donor-driven. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I would want also to say that it is also our role as senators to encourage our county governments to ensure that they embrace agroforestry as a way of employment. Mr. Speaker, sir, trade in forest product can be a good source of employment, also a good source of own source revenue for the county government. But this can only happen if we ensure that we encourage our people, we encourage our counties to not only create nurseries for seedlings, but also to portion a substantial amount of money in this sector, so that as we seek to protect the environment, we'll also be increasing our own source revenue at the same time. Mr. Speaker, sir, it has been said, and I want also to emphasize, there are some species of trees that have been planted, and it is also important to note that the colonialists introduced these species of tree because by the time they were coming to colonize this country, there was a lot of swamps around, and therefore they brought a brugam, eucalyptus, so it's called, so that they could be able to absorb as much water. Several years down the line, Mr. Speaker, now we have a situation where we have a declining water level, we have declining riparians, we have declining rivers, and therefore we should also, as a government, ensure that we make planting of eucalyptus, or commonly known as the brugam, illegal, and the ones that have been planted, and especially along the riverbanks, should be felled, because if we don't do that, then we know that we will be encouraging desertification, and most importantly, we will be seeing that the water levels in our land continues to reduce. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, as I wind up, I want to also encourage members, as we embrace the tree planting day, it is also a responsibility that we should take. Whichever occasion one attends, be it a church, be it a wedding, be it a funeral, be it a fundraiser, to sensitize people on the importance of ensuring that we grow these trees. It has been said here, and I don't want to repeat it, some of the trees are not only of medicinal value, some of them, like fruit tree, avocado, mangoes, oranges, can also be used as an alternative source of food, and especially now that we know that moving forward, we'll be relying a little more on the donor-driven and on locally produced goods. Mr. Speaker, sir, as I congratulate the member for Garissa, I would want to say that I would be a happy person to see this being realized. But we should not stop there. We should go ahead and say the corporate world, led by the KLA, led by the government organizations, we must join up as a team and ensure that moving forward, this country does not only become green, but it also becomes sustainable for the future generation, because that is our obligation, and we must ensure that we do that. And therefore, that is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, I personally established the Matinga Foundation, which has now so far planted over 500,000 seedlings, and we will continue. And the way we are doing it is we are giving kids, and we've come up with an approach where we give school-going children an adopt a seedling, and then they grow with it. By the time they finish their school, they'll see that indeed it is in their hands to transform this country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kisang.
Good. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I arise, Madam Speaker, to support this forward-looking bill, amendment bill by Senator from Garissa, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I remember 80s when I was in primary school and high school, and also early 90s, Madam Speaker, there was a lot of campaign across the country by the former president, the late Daniel Arap Moi, on afforestation. And campaigns went throughout the year. When in primary school, children were encouraged to plant trees and grow trees. And when you go back to your former primary schools or high school, Madam Speaker, and you see the number of trees that we grew, you get proud. Proud, Madam Speaker, because of what we did, and in a great way it assisted in terms of the climate change, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think there was an between 2003 up to 2013, Madam Speaker, I think there was some, we did not do proper campaign, even up to 2022, Madam Speaker. We didn't do a lot of campaign on afforestation, Madam Speaker. That is why you see the lakes across the Rift Valley, Madam Speaker, there has been a rise in the volume because of climate change, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need to go back to those days and ensure we use our children in primary school, our children in secondary school to grow, to plant and grow trees so that we ensure we reach the 15 billion target of trees by 2030, Madam Speaker. You know, it's not easy to reach 15 billion if we don't use all avenues to ensure that we plant trees and grow trees, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are very many benefits when we do afforestation. Apart from medicinal, getting basically source of water, getting timber, Madam Speaker, this is something that we need. And I thank the Senator for coming up with this amendment, and we ensure that we also incorporate and urge our counties, because the counties have resources. The National CDF fund also has a 2% on the funds they receive on environment, Madam Speaker, which, if utilized very well, basically it means all our constituencies across the country, Madam Speaker, everybody will plant something, and this will enhance and will also increase our forest cover, Madam Speaker. In fact, Madam Speaker, if you check the current percentage of our forest cover, it's only a few counties that have more than 10% forest cover, Madam Speaker. We need to find an incentive, a way of incentivizing the communities so that they know, Madam Speaker, that growing trees is beneficial to the community, it's beneficial to the county, Madam Speaker. I know we passed the mining bill and a while ago, Madam Speaker, and there were some percentages, even the Energy Act, there's a percentage that goes to the community where these mineral resources are found. There is also a percentage that goes to the county, Madam Speaker. I think it's about 20 and 5%, Madam Speaker. We also need to, during this particular amendment, Senator Aji, maybe we need to bring additional amendments so that when KFS does harvest, what does the community get? What does the county get? You know, so that, you know, the communities are taking care of the forest, but when KFS does the harvest, what remains at the county? What remains with the community? So that they own it. Otherwise, for now, there is nothing that is incentivizing the community to protect the forest. So I believe we need to bring additional amendments here so that to encourage our people, so that they know it's their own resource. They are protecting the forest, but when KFS harvest, basically they take all the money. In fact, we also need to agree and also put in this particular amendment bill, Senator Aji, a percentage. When KFS advertises for harvest of the trees, we need to set a percentage for the local sawmillers within the county, within the locality. Because sometimes they advertise and all the big millers, they harvest and the community, they don't benefit at all. So they don't see the reason why they are protecting this particular forest, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also have noted the introduction of having a afforestation week, and you have given a proposal between 15th of March up to 22nd of March, Madam Speaker. I believe we also need to look at this briefly because we know very well by April normally in our country, because we know our weather pattern, that there are a lot of rains. So maybe we need to shift that particular week from 15th maybe towards end of March or early April, so that by that time, the rains will have basically be across the country. Because if you plant around 15th and it is dry, basically there'll be an issue. We also need to encourage ourselves, as colleagues have said, wherever you go for any function, let us encourage our people to plant and grow trees. Okay,
Would you like to be involved?
Yes, use the honor of the bill. I'll be glad.
Senator Haji.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Senator Kesang, for your submission and support of the bill. I just wanted to inform you the week for tree planting that has been proposed in the amendment bill is supposed to coincide with the International Tree Planting Day. So in terms of moving, it will be a little bit difficult. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Right, okay, then it is noted. But basically, tree planting, we can just make it a continuous exercise. We can observe the international one, but we encourage our counties to do it throughout, so that basically it becomes a way of life. When it becomes a way of life, basically it means all the time when you go to church, you plant the tree, you go to school, you encourage our people to plant trees, so that basically we achieve this cover, and we sensitize our people that it is important for so many reasons, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I support the bill, and we encourage our colleagues that we support it. And I hope, Senator Aji, you've also looked for a co-sponsor in the next house, because, as we discussed yesterday, most of the bills that we pass in this house, when they go to National Assembly, they either stay in the shelves for too long or they die there. So please ensure that you get somebody to push it for you on the other side. I submit.
Thank you. Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to join my colleagues also to support the bill. I want to thank the move of the bill. I think it's the right time that we take concern of our environment and the afforestation of our lands. As aware, this country, the certification is actually encroaching so much into our lands, especially in the northern part of Kenya, and even within the Mount Kenya area. But because of deforestation, the indigenous trees are disappearing. And as a result, the land is left bare. The rainfall is so unpredictable that sometimes we might not receive the rightful rain because of the deforestation ongoing. And therefore, I think the bill now is actually giving concerns to afforestation programs, which has been there many years, but of late it has been left out. Initially, it was mostly driven by donors, but now this is the right time that we need to get budget for budgetary allocations for this program of deforestation. Afforestation. Honorable Speaker, the climate change is with us, and it has affected any part of this country, all parts of this country, adversely. And therefore, the only way we can be able to help is to have a proper program for afforestation. Honorable Speaker, we have so many programs for youth and women that are on course in the country. But of course, if this is well planned, and the youth are engaged in afforestation programs in every part of the country, the same funds can now divert it for afforestation while they're still being paid, where they can be able to produce seedlings, where they can be able to do the waterings. In the past, we used to have programs that there was a compulsory afforestation program where every household must plant some trees. And as a result, we used to see many trees growing up, especially in the urban centers. This same program should be continued and should be brought back. And actually, our approach should be the indigenous trees, because indigenous trees will not have much need for water, and will be able to resist the drought and the climate changes. because if we have some exotic trees, then I think we will not do very well, because I can see many trees are now being, the indigenous trees have been replaced. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is actually northern Kenya suffers most of deforestation as a result of refugee camps, and especially and even Turkana. As aware, this part of the country, you know, because of, you know, frequent drought, most of the trees are dying. But what happened now is even the trees that are still surviving, the refugees are cutting them and drying them, and the land is being left bare. So I think these kind of programs, we don't mind having the refugees, because if they have a problem in their countries, we can still accommodate them. But the problem is the United Nations, UNHCR, and all other Department of Refugees in the Foreign Affairs should have programs to be able to help the locals to do some afforestation. Every three cuts, then they should replace with other one. And so that at least we'll be able to maintain the forest cover in those areas. As it is now, it's just became a bare land. Honorable Speaker, we also need to have inculcate the idea of reforestation and afforestation to schools. Actually, you know, the child is still young. You must show that what it means to have trees, so that they can have that nature. They can nurture and have the feeling, that the importance of having trees everywhere. There should be school competitions. The schools which are well afforested, they should be rewarded. The schools should be paid some amount of money, so at least they can produce more and more trees, and they can afforest their schools, so that in case we can be able to impart drought desertification in those areas. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is the biggest challenge we have is actually settlements. You see, the population is increasing by the day, and more people need land. And what happens is they try to settle everywhere without planning. If you go to the other world, there are specific production systems for every area. If it's a place for farming or agriculture, it's done for only agriculture. Settlements has its own places. So, but unlike in Kenya, where everybody settles where he wants or she wants, I think that should be stopped, that we must have a proper planning for even people settling, because I know it is a population boom, people are increasing by the day, but of course we need to reserve our forest. People are now encroaching forest. If you see even Karura forest now, people are building houses. They say, oh, that we can be able to maintain the forest. It's not possible. Once you make encroachment, when trees are cut, and everybody wants to settle in the best place of Karura forest, and therefore it's a high time that we must fight. Like the famous, what do you call that lady? Yes. So we must fight for the maintenance of the forest, and stop those guys who have little money rushing to the forest site of Ngong and Karura and these places. Honorable Speaker, one other thing is we can minimize, we can do what you call forest tax holidays, like the way it's said in the place incentives, so that at least every corporate must be able to produce a certain number of trees, and they are planting trees. They support some programs for the forest. I think that's the only way that we can be able to maintain, to have forest issues. And one other thing that the bill is not showing very well is the laws, the enforcement. The enforcement laws in forestry, afforestations, and the reservation of the forest is actually very weak in this country. So I think we need to have a very strong laws to be put in place, so that at least the consequences of cutting trees and afforestation, so that we can be able to maintain our forest cover. With those few remarks, I beg to support the bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Well, thank you, Senator. Senator Wakili Hilary Sige.
I thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important bill. I first like to start by appreciating the Honorable Senator Abdul for sponsoring such a very important amendment to the bill, because, Madam Speaker, lately we do have the conversation around climate change as one of the most favored topical issues because of the need to conserve our environment. And this particular amendment has come at a very critical time where most, if not all, of the conversations, including in our schools, have got an aspect of tree planting and protection of trees and our forest cover. Madam Speaker, I will directly speak to the various clauses which the bill proposes to amend. And as I start off, Madam Speaker, with the proposed amendment to Section 8, where, as earlier on alluded by the Honorable Senator Matinga, I would urge the Honorable Senator Abdul to consider adding a provision under that particular proposal so that we seek to promote the planting and growing of trees. This, Madam Speaker, is as per the provisions as proposed of Section 8, which reads, Section 8B, promote the planting of trees on all public land in each county, promote afforestation and reef afforestation in arid and semi-arid areas in the country. I propose that the word grow be included after the word planting of trees, so that we don't only do the act of planting the tree itself. The most important aspect of tree planting, or rather afforestation, is growing of the trees, and it can only happen when we protect the trees which we have planted, and if that is possible, that will give a lot of effect to the provisions that is proposed to amend under Section 8, as well as Section 21 of the Forest Conservation and Management Act, subsection 1, which inserts an additional provision that will read, shall promote the planting of trees in all public land vested in the county government. Madam Speaker, that being a very important step in making sure that we achieve the objective of this act, because planting these trees without giving some policy direction in terms of law and even protection will not lead to us achieving those objectives. And I therefore urge the Honorable Senator Abdul to consider that provision. Secondly, the provision of Section 8, introduction of Section 8B-EB. This is what the draft bill reads. Establish at least one tree nursery in each county for trees sustainable for the environment and climatic conditions of the respective counties. This is a very important proposal, Madam Speaker, and I want to laud the Honorable Senator because we are going by creating a requirement that in each particular county there must be a tree nursery. We are not only going to be achieving the objective of planting trees, Madam Speaker, we will be enhancing the possibility of job creation. Earlier on, Madam Speaker, when the Honorable Senator Miraj spoke, she made reference to an effort that she's done in providing opportunities to young girls who've been retained in her foundation of tree planting. This particular one, if we provide it in law where every county has, we will be able to sustain, first of all, availability of tree seedlings across the country in all seasons across the year, because this will be a responsibility of the county governments. We will be creating job opportunities for the young ones who will be working in those tree nurseries. By extension, we are going to keep them engaged as against their being idle and engaging in activities which are not necessarily productive to them. Madam Speaker, when this provision is made into law, it is going to provide an aspect that is beyond just the growth of the trees. The proposal, Madam Speaker, under Section 40 of the Forest Conservation and Management Act, where there is a proposal that reads, a person who harvests a tree shall replace the tree under the direction and in an area designated by the service. I have a problem with this particular provision, and I wish the Honorable Senator Cherargei would have allowed the mover of this bill to listen to my contribution. The requirement that the service...
The Senator to be heard in silence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is very important because the provision in the proposed law is that the service will be required to provide direction and designate a place where replacement of trees having been harvested will be done. I have a problem with this because designing or designating the role to the service can prove to be impossible, because having harvested that tree, what guarantee do I have as the person who has harvested or as a member who wants to replace that tree will I have in terms of making sure that the service or those who are in the service are available to designate a place and to provide direction for that particular provision? Honorable Senator, I would request that you relook at that provision so that we are made to have an obligation in law without necessarily having the obligation on the part of the service or the officers of the service to designate a place for purposes of replacement. But otherwise, the general provision of the bill to make sure that every person who's harvested must make sure that they replace. And I would propose that instead of even providing that you cut one, you replace by one, we can as well just provide that you replace by planting more than one tree if you have harvested one, more than 5 if you have harvested 5, to ensure that we hasten the replacement capacity of the trees which we are planting. Madam Speaker, the introduction under that subsection 40A of a fine for persons who contravene the provisions of this law is a very welcome move. The reason, Madam Speaker, is that if you are to be fined, the law provides that if you are found to have contravened the provisions of subsection 1 or 2, you have committed an offense, and you are liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 5 million Kenya shillings, or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years, or to both such fine and imprisonment. Introduction of this particular fine, or rather the creation of an offense leading to a fine once you've been found convicted, Madam Speaker, will ensure that the rest of us Kenyans, who are not normally very keen in making sure that we comply with the law, will be able to comply with the law, because the punishment in itself is punitive enough to make sure that people comply with this law, and that provision is a welcome move. Madam Speaker, there is still a provision under the proposed amendment to Section 54 of the Forest Conservation and Management Act, where the taxman, Kenya Revenue Authority, is expected to create some sort of an incentive to ensure that not only the public, but also private forest proprietors are given an incentive. The introduction of subsection D, which provides that income and other tax deductions will be an aspect that the Kenya Revenue Authority will provide to private entities in order to ensure tree planting programs. This is one of the most important things that will be an incentive, not only to now the public who are protecting the forest, but also to private proprietors and those who have availed themselves to implement programs on tree planting, in this case, are given an incentive. If, for example, you are allowed to get a tax waiver by virtue of you planting certain number of trees, this way many of us and many private forest owners will push their limits to ensure that they maximize on the amount of the possible tax that they can achieve when this particular provision is implemented by the Kenya Revenue Authority. The provisions of Section 55, which seeks to amend the law by introduction of a 1-week tree planting observation week. In this will make sure that every Kenyan is under an obligation within that period of 1 week to support the process of tree planting, so that we run away from the pronouncements that we always rely on or expecting the president or his team of leadership to gazette a day. When we have this period between 15th of March and 21st of March every year, this week will be a week dedicated to tree planting, and in ensuring that this becomes law, we will enhance the support that we would desire to give to the pronouncements by the president to target the achievement of over 15 billion trees in a period of 10 years. Further to the proposed amendment to Section 57, the law as proposed by the Honorable Senator is to ensure that every person who is licensed to harvest trees is required to replace each harvested tree in accordance with directions of the service. This is more or less the earlier provision which I said we should remove the responsibility of directing and designating a particular place to the service. Whoever has been licensed to harvest trees, because we have got so many sawmillers across the country who harvest trees when they are mature enough, this requirement that they are in law supposed to replace trees, we should remove it from the service to direct and provide it in law that once you have been given a certain number of trees to harvest in a certain forest, whether it is public or private, as a licensed harvester or as a licensed person, you are under an obligation or required to replace them. It is a good move. What we only need to do is to make sure that we have got a policy on implementation so that those who are unable to implement within the provisions of that law are made to be subjected to the provisions of law in terms of creation of offense and also the penalties available. Madam Speaker, when you look at the forest cover from across the country, I have looked at the statistics, and the county that I represent, Bomet County, has got a forest cover of 24%. That is not enough. We are targeting to push to make sure that we have beyond 50%, and the sponsor of this bill, Senator Abdul, has got a forest cover of 10.3%. This is a very important proposal that Senator Abdul is making. It will support in ensuring that we not only achieve the presidential call to enhance tree planting to make sure that we achieve the 15 billion within 10 years, but also ensures that we go by the global move currently in terms of protection of the climate, protection of our forest cover, and the benefits that come alongside creation of very many forests within our areas. To the Honorable Senator, this is a very important bill, and I support and look forward to all the members, both within this House and outside this House, to support this move to make sure that we enhance our forest cover in the entire jurisdiction of Kenya, and we gain the benefits of the extended tree cover. Madam Speaker, I thank you and I support.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. Senator Margaret Kamar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to support this bill. And I would like to congratulate Senator Haji for coming up with a wonderful piece of legislation to take care of our forestation programs. Madam Speaker, I would like from the onset to mention that promotion of afforestation and reforestation in arid and semi-arid areas has been very low. And I think what this law is doing is to be deliberate in bringing afforestation, and I congratulate our colleague, because 80% of Kenya is ASAL. It's arid and semi-arid. It's only 20% of the country that actually has enough moisture for us to say that you can plant crops. And unfortunately, we are losing more land. We are losing Kiambu. We are losing a lot of Limuru pieces of land to buildings. So we are reducing the 20%, and we have the 80% that requires a lot of attention. So this bill is going to do wonders once it is implemented, and I think it is very important that we not only support, but we also implement. We push for the implementation of these afforestation of ASAL areas of this country. Madam Speaker, promoting the planting of trees at all public institutions is a very quick win. It is the easiest way of doing things because we have land that belongs to public institutions, land that belongs to schools, to and any other institutions that are completely bare. And this is going to give us a lot of coverage. If we can aim at getting 10 to 15% of each public institution planting trees, we will actually have a very, we will move a long way. A few amendments I would like to propose to our colleague. One is on Article 2BEB, where he says that we need to establish at least one tree nursery in each county for trees suitable for the environment. I would like to suggest that we be more ambitious and not just talk of one tree nursery, but have one tree nursery per public, primary, or secondary school. This is very important because in our days, as young people, we used to plant trees. Madam Speaker, I visited my tree, my primary school tree, and I found it was still standing huge as it is, and it is ready actually for harvesting, if it has not been ready for a few years. So if we use the primary schools also as a unit, and I want to persuade my colleague that it is, we can say at least one that is run by the county government, but actually all our primary schools and all our secondary schools should have tree nurseries. Not only that, we need to inculcate a tree planting behavior to our children when they are very young. Somebody mentioned earlier about the Moi era. The Moi era was really an environmental era because we had soil conservation days and we had tree planting days, and it started from the youngest. You find that the youngest children were actually planting trees. The beauty with having trees planted by students and having nurseries in schools is that we can be assured of the protection. I also have seen one of the functions that the bill is attributing to the service is that of promoting forestry education and training. I think from out of that, we would like to see, apart from agricultural fogai clubs, as they used to call them, we need to have environmental and tree planting clubs in primary schools and in secondary schools. Not to mention that with CBC coming, it is very important that we also have a course on afforestation, conservation, and climate change, so that it becomes part of us and part of what we are doing. So tree planting, I think we need to go back to make ourselves very sensitive, make our children very sensitive to environmental behavior. One other thing that used to be in those olden days were the Chiefs Act. The Chiefs Act was used to protect the environment. At the same time, it was used to protect water courses, so that water catchments were protected under the Chiefs Act, and tree felling, you would not be allowed to fell a tree without asking for permission, whether it was in a public facility or in your own farm. And this is what would make this Article 40A monitorable, because when we talk of a person who harvests a tree shall replace the tree under the direction of in an area designated by the service, you will find that that can only happen if you are in a forested area. That if you fell a tree, but of course you must again have a permit to even fell that tree. But once that has been done, you can only be designated if it is within a forested area or a forest land. But what about our own pieces of land? We need to start controlling the tree felling. I remember when tree felling was banned, it was banned even in private lands, and it helped regenerate forests within the country. So we need to relook at that and see how we can marry the Chiefs Act so that, as our colleague Wakili Sigei was saying, on the issue of on the issue of tree felling and regulating the the felling of the trees, it is not only by permits from the service, but it is good to make sure that there is accountability on the ground. So let's see how we can bring it down so that the Chiefs Act can also be, we can affect the Chiefs Act much later. We can revisit that if it is still there, because I don't think it has been referred to in a long time. But we can bring what was in the Chiefs Act also here, so that we are talking of the designated service / the chiefs of the area. Those are the people who will see from the first instance if things are going wrong, and they are the ones who can monitor if you have actually planted or not. I think when we talk of forest conservation, for us to be able to conserve, let's conserve both what is in the public land and what is in our private lands. Madam Chair, the other thing I want to persuade my colleague is that is the issue of a planting week. I wanted to persuade him to have a planting month. Planting month from 15th of March to 15th of April. Why? It's because of the rainfall pattern that is in this country. We know that that is the main rain season, and if we can allow a month, then the minister responsible will be able to organize so that you start your planting right from Mandera and come all the way to Lake Victoria. So 1 month would be more reasonable to me than 1 week. And we don't want, again, to apply the week, and then when there is a drought, then we can't do anything. So I'm requesting my colleague that we observe a national tree planting month from 15th March, as he has said, all the way to 15th of April. Madam Speaker, I don't think there is any other amendment I would like to introduce except to congratulate my colleague because this is a wonderful piece of law. Thank you, and I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mogeni Eric Okowa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also contribute to the Environment Laws Amendment Bill that have been sponsored by my good friend, Senator Haji. Madam Speaker, in the era that we are living in, we all know the pose that is posed by climate change, especially careless cutting of trees. What is occupying the attention of many governments now is the idea of protecting our environment and ensuring that our countries have good forest cover so that we have sustainable management of our forests. So I want to thank Senator Haji for coming with this bill that introduces some punitive measures and that also wants to guide our county governments on the steps they need to put in place to ensure that we attain a good forest cover. And Senator Haji, this did not start just with you. If you read our 2010 Constitution, it prescribes that as a country we need to attain 10% tree cover of the entire country. So what you are doing is trying to align these laws to the spirit and the intention of the 2010 Constitution. So I'm fairly impressed with the ideas that you have incorporated in this bill. And some of us who are in primary school during the tenure of President Daniel Arap Moi saw a sustained campaign by the late President Moi to plant trees, even on road reserves. When I was in class 5, and I was traveling from Nyamira to Kericho, where I was a primary school student, we were stopped in a town called Kapkatet. I'm sure Senator Joyce knows that place. We were stopped in a place called Kapkatet, and the DCs were implementing a decree that had been issued by President Moi. Any public vehicle that was plying that route, and I believe in other public roads, were being stopped. You step out, you plant a tree before you proceed. And I think what Moi wanted to achieve was to create an environment of what we see in the US. If you drive in the US, on both sides of the road, it's basically a forest. And I think that's what Moi wanted. And up to date, if you travel between Sotik and Kericho, you will see a tree cover on the road reserve. That is an effort that was spearheaded by President Moi. Even the idea of soil erosion. You know, what we forget is that afforestation contributes a great deal in ensuring that deforestation does not take place, and more so, soil erosion. Moi did a fantastic job, Madam Speaker. Only that as Kenyans, we did not follow. We did not take it seriously. I'm sure if we had taken Moi's effort seriously, by now, we'll be having maybe more than 10% tree cover in our country. And then let's also applaud the work that was done by the late Wangari Maathai. When people wanted to grab Karura Forest, I was at that time serving as the chair of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And there were powerful people in government who had wanted to grab Karura Forest, that beautiful tree cover you see in Gigiri near the UN headquarters, was at risk of being grabbed. And working jointly with the late Professor Wangari Maathai, we filed many cases in court, and we managed to cancel titles that had been issued to private individuals. So, Senator Haji, the effort that you are doing today resonates very well with our champions of environmental conservation that have lived in the past years. I would like you to even go a step further and borrow from what happens in some countries in the West. I remember when I was the chair of Law Society and I visited Australia, and I went to a friend's place, and a branch of a tree had fallen, and I was asking him, where can you chop the tree? And Madam Speaker, he said, for you to cut any tree, you make an application to the local authority. They will undertake public participation before you are allowed to cut that tree. That's how serious some countries take the issue of cutting trees. So what has been proposed here is actually not very radical. It's not very radical. I wish Senator Haji, you can go a step further. If you drive, think along UN, I hope I'm not getting the name of the road wrong. If you drive, I think it's UN Avenue, past the UN headquarters as you go into Runda, and as you drive from Limuru Road, Madam Speaker, you will see that there has been a sustained effort of cutting trees. I don't know for what purpose along that road. And the beauty that used to be there is long gone. But I don't think the person who is doing that exercise has been taken through a very rigorous process before he was given permission to cut those trees. How I wish, Madam Speaker, we can improve this bill to have real public participation before anybody is allowed to cut trees within our urban centers. In fact, if I remember correctly, what that lawyer told me is their public participation, you conduct a vote. You know, people who reside in that estate are invited to cast a vote and either answer in affirmation whether they support the cutting of that tree or not. And then you'll be given a permit that is conditional, that if you chop that tree, you must plant another one in replacement. So those are the kind of laws that we need to incorporate here, Senator Haji, because the target in this country is to plant 870 million trees to enable us meet the constitutional threshold of 10% tree cover in the country. If you leave it to our governors, Madam Speaker, and we don't put in place stringent laws that can discourage the cutting of trees, we'll wake up and find instead of increasing our tree cover, we'll be reducing it. And I like the idea of ensuring that we have seedlings, that natural trees that are friendly to us. We are one of the most adversely affected regions. Senator Onyonka's county of Kisii and Nyamira. I don't know who introduced these blue gums to our region. You are lucky, Madam Speaker, where you come from. You had Wangari Maathai, professor. She discouraged the planting of gum trees. In my county of Nyamira, Madam Speaker, most of our streams, water streams, have dried up. People are trekking long distances to look for a river where they can fetch water. Because we were never properly guided, we planted gum trees in, very close to our river banks. And we now have a serious water scarcity in Kisii and Nyamira counties. So the idea of ensuring that the seedlings that are put up by our county governments contain seedlings that are friendly to our environment is so important, Senator Haji. And I wish you can even strengthen that and include some research. Before you are allowed to set up a seedling, there should be some research that has been undertaken so that we plant trees that are friendly to our environment. Madam Speaker, everything is about sustainable management of our environment for the future generations. Those who will be living after us in the next 100 years. What will they find? What did we leave behind? If you leave a country that has no water, you'll be creating a situation where war will break out. River Nile here that serves, I think, 9 countries. 9 countries, including the Egypt, the Sudan. Madam Speaker, there is a clause there that if you do anything that endangers that River Nile, it can be a ground for war. So I think I support this bill, Senator Haji, and I think we should all support it. Let us see how we can enhance the offenses that you have created so that people can be conscious that we are really serious as a country in protecting our environment. The only way we can assist President William Ruto to achieve is, I think you had something in your manifesto, green legacy economy, is to assist in passing such kind of laws. Without laws, Madam Speaker, people will carelessly cut trees, sell charcoal. I don't know where the charcoal comes from. If you drive along Narok, Mayu Road, you'll find motorcycle riders carrying 5 sacks of charcoal. I don't know which forest is being endangered in that ecosystem. So we should deliberately put in place laws that discourage such kind of acts to ensure that our country attains the 10% tree cover as envisaged in our Constitution. So I support the bill, Madam Speaker, and really congratulate Senator Haji for coming up with these amendments. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Joyce Corriel.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also congratulate the Senator Haji, for the amendments that is before the floor of this House. And maybe before that, Madam Speaker, allow me also to welcome the honorable members of this House from the long recess. I know it has been long, but I just want to say that welcome back and to the business. Madam Speaker, I want to really thank the honorable senator for the amendments that he has brought to this House, and also to thank the government for the few steps that they have made in terms of making sure that environmental issues are addressed, especially the tree planting, which has been witnessed in some few years that has passed. And also want to echo the sentiments of Honorable Omogeni, where the first leaders of this country, the retired President Moi, did a lot in terms of making sure that the trees were planted along the way or along the highway, which can also still be witnessed in some of the areas. Madam Speaker, the amendment is trying to promote the planting of trees in all public land. And Madam Speaker, I want to also bring to the attention of the members that there was a suggestion that we need to have the Green Army. I don't know whether it is in the Act, but this was supposed to assist the counties in terms of implementation, because every now and then we have the Environmental Day we do the planting and we leave up to the next season. We don't know whether there are some which needs replacements before even the next planting season comes. And these are the only people who can assist us in terms of making sure that these trees are managed well. The Act also is trying to establish at least one tree nursery in each county. I would want to request the Senator Archie that it would have been prudent for us maybe to have established one nursery in every constituency. Every constituency. This is because in every constituency, it will be able to serve the schools around those areas and even the PIs that are within those particular constituencies. So establishing in one county might be far, but having it within the constituencies might be a bit convenient to the members of that particular county. So I would suggest that we have it at least one nursery in every sub-county. Madam Speaker, I don't want to labor much. Much has been said by the colleagues, but I want to say that as when we discuss about this amendment again, I would also want to suggest that it would have been prudent again to include, because most of the issues that have been affecting environment in this country is lack of coordination between the relevant ministries. You find the Ministry of Environment is trying their best in terms of making sure that the environment is well taken care of, but sometimes you find also the Ministry of Lands capping some land to the public to an extent that you find a lot of complaints where I can call it land crapping issues are happening, and that is why you find IDPs across the country is because of the misunderstanding between the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Lands. These are the government